She swore she would never marry the crown prince. He wasn't even on her radar, just some guy in a scary helmet who ruled with an iron fist and gave her absolutely zero reason to feel anything other than pure, unfiltered terror. And yet, there's something about waking up with a second chance at life that completely rewires your priorities. When you've already seen how your story ends, badly by the way, really badly, suddenly the man everyone calls a tyrant starts looking a little different. Not safe, not gentle, not even particularly nice, but somehow, exactly what she needed. This is the story of a girl who came back from the dead specifically to avoid falling in love with him. Spoiler, it didn't work. The story opens with a girl begging for her innocence, but her father ignores her and drags her away. Earlier, the palace had fallen into chaos. The princess was poisoned, and Lady Llewellyn was blamed by her former partner, Mikkel. That accusation spread suspicion through the whole palace. Even though Llewellyn strongly denies it, and despite their messy past, no one lets the charge go. The Emperor then orders her locked up in the dreaded Chamber of Shadows. Llewellyn feels completely abandoned. It brings back painful memories of her cold father. Her despair gets even worse when her father gives her a dagger, and a meeting with the cruel crown prince only adds to her terror. In the end, Llewellyn takes her own life, even though the crown prince tries to stop it too late. Then the story shifts, hinting that she has been reborn and setting up a much deeper mystery. Llewellyn decides to break up with Mikkel. He's shocked, but she's set on avoiding the tragic fate from the novel. Mikkel lashes out and tells her never to show her face again. Her oddly happy reaction leaves him stunned, and he wonders if she's just doing this for attention. Later, she runs into her father, Duke Legis. She tells him she broke up with Mikkel. To her surprise, Duke Legis reacts in a way she didn't expect. Llewellyn retreats to her room where her maid mistakes her yawning for crying. The maid keeps misunderstanding things and mentions Llewellyn's heartbreak to Duke Legis. The next sunny morning, Llewellyn wakes up feeling hopeful and sure it'll be a good day. But things get strange when Duke Legis, who almost never eats with her, calls her to breakfast. The meal quickly turns awkward as his attitude shifts, clearly affected by what the maid told him the night before. Llewellyn grows self-conscious and thinks her father sees her as pathetic next to his famous war record and heroic image. Then Duke Legis suddenly asks what kind of man she likes. She immediately worries he's planning to marry her off for succession. To stop that, she boldly says she wants someone stronger than her father, something that sounds nearly impossible, even to him. Soon after, he shocks her again by asking her to go out with him. It's something she's never experienced in all 18 years of her life. They head to a busy shopping street, with merchants loudly trying to sell their goods. To Llewellyn's confusion, her father buys nearly everything that catches her eye, leaving her totally puzzled. After getting overwhelmed by the crowd, she slips into an armor shop, where she runs into a tall, sharp-eyed man who makes the day even stranger. Things get tense when the man's reaction annoys her. She notices he's handsome at first, but his attitude quickly gets on her nerves, and she tells him the item he wants is the one she was looking at, armor polish. The merchant is confused, but Llewellyn insists and claims she needs it because her accessories have lost their shine. While the merchant goes to bring out a big supply from storage, the man takes what he needs, leaves one gold coin, and starts to leave. Llewellyn follows to correct him, bumping into him and realizing he must not know local prices. She quietly explains that one gold coin can buy 10 bottles of armor polish. Back with her father, Llewellyn, tired and confused by his strange behavior all day, stumbles while walking on the stairs. Her father quickly catches her and carries her to the carriage. Even when she asks him to put her down, he refuses. While carrying her, he gives her odd advice, telling her to find someone she likes soon. Then a strange feeling rushes through Llewellyn's body, and she faints in his arms, leaving him panicked. After 4 days unconscious, Llewellyn wakes from a dream of her father crying at her bedside, only to find him gone. Legis stops by briefly, but soon leaves again, and she feels a little disappointed. Back in her room, she finds piles of gifts, flowers, and letters asking about her health. Wanting to leave her villainous image behind, she decides to answer them herself. One goal she sets is becoming independent through hard study, despite being rich. But when she goes to the library, she finds her father there. That leads to him grilling her nonstop about the book in her hands. The questioning finally stops when Legis gets a visitor. But before leaving, he tells her to read a book on strategy and tactics. Tired out, she finds a pendant under one of the books and plans to return it to her father. But while looking for him, she overhears Legis arguing with a man named Max in the aisle. Listening in, Llewellyn learns that Max is Legis's student. When Legis says that people sometimes grow stronger to protect a weakness, it reminds her of the Chamber of Shadows and makes her think he might have someone precious he wants to protect. Legis adds that Max will probably find someone like that one day too. Max smugly replies that he hasn't found someone to protect, only a rat. Llewellyn takes that literally and thinks there's an actual rat in the house. Legis realizes Max means Llewellyn and coldly warns him not to hurt her, saying he won't go easy on him, even if he's Max. But Juelian still doesn't understand that Max sees her as Legis's weak point and keeps thinking he meant a real rat. Back in Legis's room, the butler tells him that Mikhail keeps sending Juelian letters and pushing for a reply. The letters talk down to her, which enrages Legis. He orders the butler to keep every one of them from Juelian and burn them all. Meanwhile, Juelian gets an invitation from Rosemary, which she sees as a chance to change her bad fate. She personally writes back, decorating the letter with lace and flowers. Rosemary says she admires Juelian despite her past cold behavior. Their letters soon become gossip among the noble ladies. After overhearing this, Mikhail decides to attend Rosemary's party, maybe hoping to settle things with Juelian. Juelian goes shopping for Rosemary's gift, escorted by a ridiculous 12 knights because of her father. She visits Ion Theodore's workshop, knowing he'll one day become a master craftsman, and orders a present from him. Meanwhile, at the Floyans Manor, the butler shows Legis a list of possible suitors for Jewel. When he sees Maximilian Cassian's name, Legis frowns and immediately has it removed. Before he can deal with the rest, he's urgently called to the palace. While shopping, Jewel spots a shiny item she thinks would make a perfect gift for her father. As she considers buying it, Radian, Mikhail's cousin and a famous gossip, approaches and notices exactly what she picked. Legis is called to the Asha Empire Palace to investigate the assassination attempt, and he has to stay there for a few days to protect the Emperor. Meanwhile, Max watches Legis speak with his knights, including asking about Jewel, and he feels pleased, convinced she's Legis's weakness. Elsewhere in the city, the gossip-loving Radian enjoys stirring trouble. He tells Mikhail he saw Jewel buying cufflinks for some new man. That night, Jewel waits nervously for her father so she can return the pendant and give him the cufflinks. But her maid comically gets it wrong and assumes she's upset because her father isn't home. Then Max sneaks into Jewel's room, though his reason isn't clear. Jewel wakes up to his presence and calmly tells him he has the wrong room. Max is struck by how fearless she is and realizes she's the girl from the armor shop. They clear things up. Max isn't an assassin, just her father's student, which relieves Jewel, even though she first thought he might be a ghost. The moment turns dangerous when a palace guard hears voices in the ladies' room. Max instantly draws his sword and presses it to Jewel's neck to keep her quiet. As they deal with the situation, Jewel picks up on what Max wants her to say to the guards, and they manage to send them away without suspicion. Once the guards leave, she asks Max to let her go. Max admits he has nowhere to stay, and Juvel feels sorry for him, guessing he got kicked out and came looking for her father, only to get lost. So she lets him stay in her room for the night, gives him a pillow, and falls fast asleep. This completely throws Max off. He came to remove Legis's weakness, but now he's lying beside Juvel, his supposed target, and getting strangely sleepy himself. When she wakes with a start, she finds Max asleep right next to her and can't help noticing how handsome he is. Then her imagination runs wild, and she panics that this could turn into a scandal and end up in the papers. When she reaches out to wake Max, he reacts on instinct, and Juvel falls to the floor. Max wonders how he ended up there, while Juvel thinks he acts like a grumpy cat she knew as a child. Expecting her maid soon, Juvel tells Max to hide in the closet, so no one gets the wrong idea about them spending the night together. The maid tries to come in but finds Juvel's door locked. Inside, Juvel shuts Max in the closet and answers the maid, who asks why the door is locked. Juvel says she was worried someone might barge in, but the maid laughs it off, saying even thieves stay away from the Floyan house. Max waits quietly in the closet, wondering why he acted so irrationally and thinking about how strange Juvel is. Then he hears odd sounds from the room and starts imagining weird things. He doesn't know the maid is just putting ointment on Juvel's bruises, which Max caused himself. Later, Juvel opens the closet and invites Max to breakfast. Her kindness makes him blush. Juvel unknowingly gives Max a cucumber sandwich, not knowing he hates cucumbers. Max works up the nerve to eat it, briefly forgetting why he came to Juvel's room in the first place. Meanwhile, at the Ashet Empire Palace, Duke Elios meets the Emperor and suggests setting a trap instead of keeping Duke Lugus only as the Emperor's guard. The Emperor doesn't look pleased, but he seems sure he can control Lugus with a mysterious ring. Back in Juvel's room, she reads while growing sleepy and watches Max sleeping nearby. When Max wakes and asks why she's staring, Juvel starts wondering when he plans to leave. She guesses he might stay until Lugus returns and throws him out. Then she remembers the gift she bought for her father and asks what Max thinks of it, accidentally making Max get the wrong idea. Curious, Max asks who Juvel plans to give the cufflinks to. Her vague answer only confuses him more. Knowing she used to like Mikhail, Max assumes the gift is for him so they can make up. That thought makes his voice turn sharp. Irritated, Juvel explains she wants to get closer to her father, and the cufflinks are for him. Max smiles when he hears that, though he still says cufflinks aren't very useful for a swordsman. Even so, he assures her that her father will value the gift. At the Imperial Palace, Lugus is resting in a tree when a knight rushes over with news about Juvel, making him jump down at once. The knight says Juvel has been worried since Lugus left and is too unwell to leave her room. That makes Lucas clench his fists and head straight to see the Emperor. While Juvel struggles to write a letter to her father, Max quietly watches her. She asks him what he usually talks about with Lucas. Max keeps quiet, not wanting to admit Lucas often boasts about her. So Juvel decides to write the letter herself. An hour later, Max is shocked by what she wrote. It's an apology letter. He starts wondering how Lucas will react when he reads it. Back at the palace, the Emperor is furious that Lucas still hasn't caught the assassin. Lucas suspects Max is involved and figures he may be trying to turn him against the Emperor. Even while holding back his anger, Lucas shoots the Emperor a cold, hostile look. In the end, Lucas is ordered to remain one more day as the Emperor's guard. Later, Juvel goes to her father's study to leave the gift on his desk, but she finds a list of possible suitors for her. One name is circled in particular: Maximilian Cassianachet, the Crown Prince. Juvel instantly misunderstands and thinks her father plans to marry her off to the cruel, insane Crown Prince. She has no idea Lucas actually meant to cross that name off the list. Still shaken by the list, Juvel remembers the first time Lucas asked about her ideal man. The Crown Prince may seem perfect on paper, but he's also a cold-blooded madman who kills without hesitation. In Juvel's past life, he even tried to torture her. The thought crushes her, and she breaks down crying. At the same time, Max waits in Juvel's room and catches an assassin sent by the Empress to tell him he must return to the Empire right away. When Juvel comes back to her room, she starts desperately trying to think of a way not to be handed over to the Crown Prince. But Max is gone. As she looks for him, she notices a note on the table. It says, "Don't come looking for me. I'll come back when it's time." Somehow, someone has grown attached to her without her ever asking for it. Riding away on horseback, Max thinks about the note he left and wonders if being with Juvel has started to feel natural. He almost wishes the guard hadn't come for him so soon. Meanwhile, Juvel dozes off and wakes to the empty room, with Max still nowhere around. When she spots the gift for Legis, she starts worrying he may be angry about the pendant she found. Her maid notices Juvel has been acting oddly and assumes it's because the Duke is away, so she suggests Juvel go outside and get some sun. The maid's already set out snacks and cakes, but Juvel's favorite strawberry cake is missing. The maid panics and runs off to make one, leaving Juvel by herself. Juvel thinks that's probably better since she needs to figure out the pendant and suitor mess before her father comes back. But then Legis returns much sooner than she expected, shocking Juvel. She asks if he's had dinner yet and invites him to eat with her. Legis says he came back early because he'll never leave her alone again. His words confuse Juvel so much that she freezes. Then Legis asks to have dinner with Juvel and leads her to the dining room while holding her hand. There, he asks about the party she's attending and whether she already chose a partner, which makes Juvel nervous. She says she's still having trouble choosing from all the men who want to accompany her. Earlier in her room, she had found many letters asking to be her partner. Among them was Sir Boromir, known as a skilled and well-mannered imperial knight, Sir Edmund Rowain, famous for his looks and sharp wit, and Sir Ronald Crocus, a candidate for the next Minister of Foreign Affairs. After Marilyn, Juvel's maid, leaves the room, Legis notices a letter in Juvel's hand and asks if she's picked someone. Marilyn answers that it's Sir Edmund. Legis asks what kind of reputation Sir Edmund has, and the maid eagerly starts listing his good points. But Legis suddenly vanishes, deciding to check for himself whether Sir Edmund is worthy of his daughter. Under Legis's glare, Sir Edmund can only shake in silence. Then Legis rises and coldly declares, "You are unqualified." Sir Edmund asks why Legis showed up at his home in the middle of the night, but the only answer he gets is, "You're unqualified." Back at the Floyen residence, the item Juvel ordered from the Theodore workshop finally arrives, and it's an impressive gift. Soon after, she's told Sir Edmund has come to answer her letter. Though she's struck by Edmund's handsome face, she still finds herself thinking of Max. Then Edmund suddenly drops to his knees and apologizes for agreeing to escort another lady instead. He says rumors in society made him think Juvel already had a partner. Juvel says that isn't true, but she accepts his apology. Relieved to be forgiven, he asks her to dinner, but one glare from Legis makes him take it back and hurry out, leaving Juvel baffled. At Salon Blooms, where nobles gathered to trade gossip, Max overhears people talking about Juvel and guessing who will escort her to Rosemary's party. Some are saying Juvel has already gotten over Mikael. The gossip irritates Max so much that he drops his glass on purpose. He says it's disgusting to sit around talking about people like that. After that, Max heads inside and is met by Madame Freccia, the owner. She notes it's rare to see rumors get under Max's skin. Madame Freccia wonders why he's been acting so oddly since coming back from the Floyen estate. Max asks what people are saying about Lady Floyen, and Madame Freccia explains the story about her love affair is false. She says Juvel sent a letter to Sir Edmund Rowan asking him to be her partner for the party, but he refused. Hearing that makes Max furious. Then Madame Freccia adds that society is also whispering Juvel meets a secret admirer at night, and that rumor started with Sir Radian Droyle, Mikhail's cousin. Max gets up and tells Madame Fresha to find anything he can use as a weapon against the Hessen and Droyle families. But after he leaves, Madame Fresha realizes Legis already bought that same information. At the Floyan residence, Juvel is having tea with her father. Only 5 minutes earlier, after Sir Edmund left, Legis had asked her to join him. He suddenly asks whether she has chosen a partner. Since Juvel was just turned down, she worries he's bringing up marriage again and says she'll think about it. Legis tells her that if she can't find a partner, she needs to tell him. But the way he says it causes yet another misunderstanding. Juvel asks if she may leave first, but Legis says he also has something to take care of, and that word always makes Juvel think the worst. Max waits for Legis to leave, then watches his carriage head off. After that, Max slips into Juvel's room like he already belongs there. He looks around for her, wondering if she went to ask someone else to be her partner. It feels strange that he suddenly cares so much about that. Then he hears Juvel call from behind, asking what he's doing in her room. Max steps in close and demands to know where she was. Juvel says she was downstairs, and Max immediately brightens. Juvel lets out a sigh, and as Max moves closer, he asks what's wrong. Juvel is flustered by how near he is. She admits she has a lot on her mind, and Max says he'll listen. Still unsure, Juvel asks him to promise he won't tell her father, and Max agrees at once. He even says she can take everything he owns if he tells Legis by mistake. That makes Juvel laugh, and she asks why he's betting all he has when he doesn't even own a house. Her smile leaves Max blushing. Juvel finally tells him she's been weighed down by the awful rumors about her secretly meeting another man. Because of those rumors, every man who offered to be her partner has backed out. Blushing, Max starts imagining what he'd do if Juvel asked him instead. In his dreams, Juvel admits she doesn't really care about lacking a party partner. The real issue is that her father seems ready to marry her off. The idea of Legis forcing her into marriage makes Max furious. So Juvel says she needs to prove to Legis that she already has a partner. Max hints that the right partner may be much closer than she thinks. Juvel pauses, then realizes who he means. She thanks him for the idea, and Max blushes harder, thinking she's about to choose him. Instead, Juvel says she's going to ask Geraldine. Max is stunned and furious. He demands to know who Geraldine is because he really thought she meant him. Who the hell is Geraldine? Max blurts out. Juvel explains that he's her cousin and also her knight. That calms Max down, though he still can't understand why hearing it makes him feel so relieved. As Max gets ready to leave, Juvel gives him a pouch of money and says he can stay there if he needs to, which makes him blush again. Meanwhile, Legis stops Sir Ronald Crocus on his way to Floyan Manor. He pressures Sir Ronald to turn back, saying he's not worthy to be Juvel's partner, but Sir Ronald refuses and insists Juvelian will choose him in the end. When he calls Legis's daughter by only her first name, Legis's anger spikes, and Sir Ronald quickly backs off. At Floyan Manor, Juvel keeps thinking about the rumor of her secret lover, and suspects Sir Droyle spread it. She figures that if Legis wears the cufflinks, the rumor will disappear at once. During tea with Legis, she gives him the pendant and the cufflinks, leaving him speechless. From Legis's reaction, Juvel realizes asking him to wear the cufflinks may have been too much. She carefully brings up finding a partner for the upcoming party. Before she can explain, Legis says he'll attend with her. He thinks she was asking him to be her escort, and Juvel is left stunned. Max looks troubled. His mind is clearly stuck on Juvel. Madame Freya, one of Max's knights, cuts in to update him about Victor. Victor is acting as Max's stand-in, but the Emperor's men are getting suspicious. Max tells Freya to make sure Victor acts more naturally. Then Freya brings up the rumors about Juvel. She warns that the nobles at Lady Rosemary's party will be eager to shame her. Max orders Freya to attend the weekend party and handle a task for him. At the party, some young ladies wait for Juvel and guess who her partner will be. Freya overhears them and says they can find Juvel's secret lover by checking who wears the cufflinks. That grabs their attention, especially since Mikhail is there too. On the way to Rosemary's party, Legis tells Juvel he'll stay by her side, so she has nothing to fear. When they arrive, all eyes turn toward them as Juvel and Legis step out together. Juvel thinks about how badly she used to want attention after feeling abandoned by her father. Now she doesn't want his love again, and she even plans to run away because he arranged her marriage to the crown prince. Still, she wonders how Legis truly feels about her, because he treats her like someone precious. When he takes her hand to steady her, everyone notices the cufflinks he's wearing. They realize the gift was meant for her father, though some still suspect she bought another pair at the last second. Legis's cold glare scares them into silence. Mikhail sees this, and smugly decides Juvel still wants no man but him. Rosemary and her mother come to welcome Legis and Juvel. Rosemary hesitates at first, but then greets Juvel warmly and thanks her for coming. Juvel gives Rosemary her gift, and Rosemary is delighted. The other ladies praise how clever and unique it is. Rosemary asks where Juvel got it, and to everyone's surprise, Juvel says it came from the Fyodor workshop. That makes the others see her in a much better light. Tired from all the socializing, Juvel steps outside for air. Max is secretly watching her from a tree nearby. He panics when he sees tears on her face, but she only teared up after a huge yawn. Max jumps down at once and asks why she's crying. Juvel is startled by his sudden appearance. As he gently wipes her tears, Max tells her not to cry. He asks who hurt her, clearly worried. Juvel says if he really wants to help, he needs to watch how he speaks to people. Because she cares about him, she explains that talking casually to nobles could get him killed. She adds that showing her proper respect matters too, because others follow his lead. Max reluctantly agrees. Juvel then asks why he's there. Max shyly claims he had other business, though really he came because he wanted to see her. He asks where her partner is, and Juvel says her father is inside the hall. Max had thought Geraldine would be with her, so he's surprised it was Legis. As they talk, music begins to play. Max asks Juvel for a dance. She hesitates, but he teases that he doesn't dance with just anyone. That makes Juvel blush. To her surprise, Max dances very well. Then Juvel suddenly stumbles and Max catches her, leaving their faces only inches apart. Legis sees this from across the room and angrily orders Max to stay away from her. A little earlier, Legis had been trying to mingle with the guests. He noticed Juvel heading to the terrace and assumed she wanted fresh air. Mikkel, however, took it as an invitation to follow her. Legis caught that immediately and stopped him with a glare. He was already angry that Mikkel dared look down on his precious daughter. Then Legis heard Juvel speaking with someone. Seeing a man's silhouette beside her, he realized she wasn't alone. When their faces moved closer, Legis rushed over in fury to stop anything from happening. Once he sees the man is Max, he can't believe Max would chase after his daughter. Even in his anger, he remembers taking Max in as his student to keep a promise to Max's mother. Still, Legis refuses to let Max get close to Juvel, seeing him as a cruel, arrogant prince no matter how skilled or handsome he is. Juvel worries Legis will hurt himself when he crushes his wine glass in anger. Noticing her concern, he softens and gently tells her to leave with him. Max reaches for Juvel's hand and asks if her foot is hurt, but Legis knocks his hand away and says it's none of his concern. Then he lifts Juvel into his arms and warns Max not to come to his house again. He'll be the one visiting Max. Everyone stares at Legis as he carries Juvel away, making her uncomfortable. She asks him to put her down, but Legis refuses, saying she shouldn't force herself while injured. The truth is, Juvel is just embarrassed by all the attention. The guests begin whispering about her and call her an attention seeker. Rosemary cuts in and reminds them Juvel was ill before and may not be fully recovered. The others agree, saying Juvel has always been physically weak. Meanwhile, Mikhail overhears them and remembers when he once thought Juvel faked being frail to get his attention. Later, he learned her condition was real. Back in Juvel's room, Legis tells her to rest and stay inside for a few days. Juvel is confused by his sudden concern. She starts to think he's only protecting her health so he can still marry her off to the crown prince. Juvel thought breaking things off with Mikhail had solved her problems, but now she may be in even deeper trouble. At Salon Bloom's, Max can't stop thinking about Juvel after that day. He even dreams about catching her and imagines their faces getting even closer. After that, he tells Madame Freya to send Juvel an invitation. Freya warns it won't be easy since Juvel is now so popular and flooded with invitations. At the same time, Juvel is buried under piles of invitations. When the butler brings another letter from Earl Herand, from the Empress's mother's family, she doesn't even have the energy to answer. Juvel believes Legis is busy arranging her marriage to the crown prince, so she knows she needs an escape soon. Then someone knocks on her window, and it's Max. Juvel suddenly gets an idea, invites him in, and asks him to date her. The letter from Earl Herand was actually the one Max had Freya send. When Juvel never replied, Max came to see her himself. He even waited until Legis was out before visiting. And instead of trouble, he ends up getting asked out by Juvel. Max is thrilled and instantly starts imagining a future family with Juvel, but his fantasy crashes when she explains that the relationship would only be a contract. Juvel thinks Max is the perfect fake partner because he's skilled with a sword and also Legis' student, but Max clearly doesn't like the idea. Juvel tries to sweeten the deal so he'll agree, but he only looks more upset. Then she says the contract ends once she leaves the house, which throws Max off. He asks why she'd choose something that would make her miserable. Juvel explains that her father has chosen a man she can't refuse. Max asks who it is. After making him promise again to keep quiet, she reveals the name, Maximilian Cassianache. At first, Max isn't fully paying attention, but then it hits him that she just said his name. He feels awkward and uneasy because he knows the truth. Juvel wants to pretend she's dating someone so Legis won't force her to marry the crown prince. Still, Max tries to argue that the crown prince might suit her, and that marrying him could help her since he'll become the next ruler. But Juvel refuses. She says she'd rather stay alone forever than marry that sadistic tyrant. Max is stunned and leaves, completely downcast. Juvel is left wishing he would at least give her a clear answer. Max returns to Salon Bloom's in a gloomy mood, leaving Madame Freya confused. He suddenly asks why a woman would want to avoid her future husband. Freya wonders if there might be some reason beyond simple hatred for the man. She suspects this involves Yuval, but Max denies it, almost slipping up about their earlier talk. Noticing Freya's interest, Max stops himself and changes the subject. Then Freya shares troubling news. Isabel has sent another assassin to kill him. Max remembers Yuval's rejection of the cruel crown prince, and surprisingly decides to spare the assassin, shocking Freya because she's never seen him act like this. Max then asks about any marriage proposals, and when there are none, he leaves at once. At Salon Blooms. Meanwhile, in the Floyan house, Juvel and Legis share a calm dinner, though Juvel quietly hopes he won't bring up marriage. Out of nowhere, Legis mentions the crown prince, catching Juvel by surprise. She quickly tries to turn the talk elsewhere by asking about the First Empire and its artifacts. That makes Legis go pale. He abruptly excuses himself, claiming urgent business. Juvel is left confused, since this is unlike him. Legis is rattled after learning Juvel is researching the imperial family. He fears she may discover the truth about the ring. He assumes she may have heard bad rumors about the cruel crown prince, yet she seems strangely calm about it. Worried about her happiness, Legis decides he has to act. When Juvel calls out to him, he startles, but she is only showing real concern for him. Juvel worries she said something wrong at dinner, but Legis just smiles and says they should head inside before it gets colder. As they walk, he tells Juvel to learn more about the crown prince, which only confirms that he plans to marry her to that cruel crown prince. Juvel agrees on the surface, but privately she has no plan to go along with it. After Juvel leaves, Legis vows to protect her happiness and keep her away from Max. At the same time, Juvel starts thinking about asking Max for a contract relationship again. Still feeling low, Juvel gets a letter from Lady Rosemary asking how she is and inviting her to a tea party. Juvel takes it as a chance to hear what high society thinks of the crown prince and learn what he hates. Meanwhile, Rosemary is thrilled to hear Juvel has recovered and wants to come to the tea party. The other ladies are excited to meet Juvel too. Rosemary then asks Lady Veronica Joanna Terrence if she's fine with hosting it, and Veronica agrees, though not happily. She's frustrated that Rosemary invited Juvelian to the tea party without asking first. When Veronica brings up Juvelian, Mikhail sweet-talks her and asks to be invited too, pretending it's for her sake. Caught up by his act, Veronica agrees, not realizing Mikhail has his own reasons. While shopping for a dress for the tea party, Juvel is escorted by a lot of guards. A friendly woman gives her advice on what to wear, and the guards like how kind she is. She's Madame Frisia, and she tells Juvel to pick something comfortable. Later, Juvel notices a scene nearby between Max and Baron Gordon. When it gets worse, Juvel steps in, catching Max off guard. Baron Gordon is first scared of Duke Floyan's daughter, then tries to charm her, but Juvel quickly calls out how badly he treats people. She says Max is her personal guard and warns Baron Gordon not to touch anyone from her house. When the Baron tries to blame Max, it becomes obvious he was just jealous and wanted to pick on him. Juvel calms things down by saying Max's actions are her responsibility and tells the Baron to insult her instead. Unable to disrespect Juvel, Baron Gordon apologizes, and she tells him to say sorry to Max too, but Max's glare sends him running. Max thanks Juvel, though the way he does it makes her uneasy. Then he says he wants the contract relationship. Juvel quickly covers his mouth, warning him not to say anything important where others can hear. The people around them get even more confused. Juvel tells Max to come with her, and once they're in the carriage, she says she thought he was rejecting her because he never answered. The real reason Max took so long is that the cruel tyrant Juvel hates is actually him, but he still can't tell her that. Juvel asks why he went to the arcade if he wasn't shopping, and Max gets touchy, asking what was wrong with that. The truth is, Madame Frecha told Max about the tea party Juvel would attend, and that Mikhail would be there too. That made Max angry. Since she knew he'd go to the Floyan residence, Madame Frecha told him Juvel wasn't home and had gone to the arcade, which is why he came here. Once Mikhail is mentioned again, Max gets furious and agrees to the contract to protect Juvel from him. Then Max suddenly asks Juvel why she chose him. Juvel says it's because he's her father's student. Max is stunned, realizing she didn't ask because she liked him, while he had taken it seriously. But Juvel adds that Max is the only man she feels comfortable doing this with. That makes Max happy, while Juvel thinks his face is exactly her type, even if his personality isn't. Then Juvel asks about payment. Max doesn't like hearing that and says he doesn't need money. This is just repayment for getting her hurt before. Juvel grabs his hand, touched that he's actually so kind. Embarrassed, Max asks her to let go. Juvel says they have to act like real lovers now, so they can't avoid skinship, holding hands, linking arms, and calling each other by name. Then Juvel realizes they never properly introduced themselves. Just as Juvel starts to say her name, Max cuts in and says he already knew it. That bothers Juvel, since he knew her name all along but kept calling her you. Still, she says she knows his name too because she heard her father use it. Thinking Max is a nice name, she says he'll become a great person someday. Then Juvel brings up the contract again, and Max's mood drops right away. Even though he already refused payment, Juvel insists they still need a contract to protect both of them. Max says he trusts her and knows she wouldn't hurt him. Juvel is deeply moved by how much trust he gives her, because no one has ever trusted her like that before. She tells him he can't be that naive and shouldn't trust anyone, not even people close to him. She keeps insisting on the contract. Max says he understands, but Juvel still isn't sure he really gets how serious this is. Suddenly, Juvel pulls him closer, saying they need to get their mouths in sync. Max freezes, and Juvel tells him to come nearer because it's important. Flustered, Max thinks this is way too fast and worries it might be his first kiss. But when Juvel leans in, he shuts his eyes and hears her whisper that her guard Geraldine will ask how they met, and they need matching stories. As the carriage jolts, Juvel turns away, and Max realizes what she actually meant. Once again, he got his hopes up for nothing. When they arrive, Geraldine immediately demands an explanation, just like Juvel expected. Juvel introduces Max as her lover, and the guards are stunned since they've stayed by her side and never saw him before. They assume Juvel picked Max just for his looks. Juvel calmly says they met at Count Maison's party, which surprises Geraldine. Even in mercenary clothes, Geraldine thinks Max might be a noble and wonders what house he's from. Juvel explains that Max isn't a noble. He's one of the hired mercenaries. That shocks the guards even more. Geraldine finally asks Juvel to explain exactly how they met. Before arriving, Max and Juvel had already agreed on what to tell him in the carriage. Max reluctantly decided to follow Juvel's lead. So Juvel tells Geraldine she saved Max and starts their fake story. Max had been surrounded by noble ladies, and then Juvel showed up and asked if they'd seen Mikael. The women ran off, and Max said Juvel had saved him, so he wanted to repay her. The guards are speechless, then suddenly decide Max may look scary but is actually soft-hearted. Juvel adds that after meeting him a few times, she felt he was the one. After finishing the story, she invites Max inside. Still stunned, Geraldine sums it up as Juvel liking Max mainly because he's handsome. Before they enter, Juvel gets upset because Geraldine seems to be glaring at Max for being a commoner, when really Max has been glaring at everyone this whole time. Geraldine senses something strange about Max and wonders who he really is. As Juvel takes Max's hand, she tells him she'll protect him no matter what. He thinks that's ridiculous, but it still makes him happy. Then a cup crashes to the floor. Legis is shaken when he sees his precious daughter holding hands with Max. To make it worse, Juvel introduces Max as the man she loves, leaving Legis even more stunned. Even though Legis had guards watching Juvel and nothing unusual was reported, this is the last thing he expected, ruining his hope for a quiet evening with her. Juvel is startled by how strongly Legis reacts. Legis looks furious and demands to know what's going on. Juvel remembers that he normally stays calm even when she makes mistakes, but now he's clearly angry. She assumes it's because this isn't part of his plan. Clinging to Max's arm, Juvel says they are officially dating. Legis can hardly believe what he hears. They move to the drawing room. Max politely pulls out a chair for Juvel, and she smiles back at him. Watching this, Legis can't match Max's gentle treatment of Juvel with the cruel person he believes Max to be. He suspects Max is tricking his daughter into loving him and using her to speed up the rebellion. Legis asks how they met, and Juvel gets nervous. Fooling Geraldine was one thing, but fooling her father will be harder. To make it sound believable, she mixes truth with lies. She says Max came looking for Legis, and since it was late and she thought he had nowhere to go, she let him sleep in her room. The word sleep makes Legis boil with rage, but Juvel quickly says nothing happened, and Max nods. Legis warns that nothing must happen between them, or Max won't leave alive. He's horrified that instead of telling Derek the butler to find Max a room, Juvel brought him into hers. Juvel argues it was late and Max wouldn't hurt her because he's Legis's student. But Legis knows Max is dangerous and impossible to predict. No matter how much he tried to correct him, Max is still a tyrant who could hurt Juvel. Seeing that Juvel doesn't understand the danger, Legis deeply regrets ever taking Max as his student. Juvel breaks into his thoughts, saying that after only knowing one-sided love until now, having someone she loves love her back feels like a miracle. She promises she won't disgrace his name and asks for his blessing to be with Max. Legis is left speechless. He remembers Juvel as a child, his beloved daughter, whom he always let do what she wanted because nothing she did could ever hurt him. But this time, Legis refuses to bless them and tells them to break up. Juvel feels helpless, realizing her father still plans to marry her to the crown prince. But to their surprise, Max refuses to end things with Juvel. He remembers Legis once telling him that people grow stronger when they have someone precious to protect. Holding Juvel by the shoulder, Max declares that he's finally found that person. And it's Juvel. Juvel is honestly impressed by how well he plays the part. Legis cuts in, unconvinced. Not long ago, Max called Juvel a rat, and now she's suddenly precious? Max reacts even more strongly, saying he won't just stand by if Legis tries to come between them. He even says his teacher comes second now. That only makes Legis angrier. He snaps that Max is no longer his student. Javel goes pale. She never thought it would get this bad. Max then asks the shaken Javel to leave with him. As they head out, Lee just yells for them to stop and grabs Max's shoulder. Max shoots him a glare and tells him not to order him around. Javel grows worried, feeling that Max has gone too far. Still, she tells her father to calm down and says she'll handle it. Lee just is caught off guard by how firmly Javel says it. He slowly lets go of Max. Then he watches them leave. Outside, Javel thanks Max for standing up for her, but says he crossed a line with her father. She makes it clear she never wanted him disowned or insulting Legis. To Javel, forcing help on someone who doesn't want it only helps yourself. Max is startled and asks if she still wants his help. Taking his hand, Javel says she does. But if he keeps helping like that, she'll have to find another way. So Max asks what she wants him to do. Javel tells him to make peace with Legis and apologize. At first, Max clearly doesn't want to, but when he sees how serious Javel is, he gives in. Watching from afar, Legis is surprised that Max actually listens to Javel and starts wondering if he may have really changed. Max and Javel go back in, and Javel apologizes for leaving like that. She then says Max has something to tell Legis. Max bows and apologizes, but Legis still doubts he means it. He thinks Max is only using his daughter for his own plans. So instead of accepting the apology, Legis shuts him down and says he is no longer his student. That confirms to Max that Legis never meant to let him marry Javel. He doesn't get how Javel misunderstood the situation, but judging by his look, he has no plans to explain it. As the mood turns tense, Javel feels she has to do something drastic. She suddenly drops to her knees and apologizes, stunning both Max and Legis. She plans to ask her father's forgiveness and still insist on dating Max. Max is shocked and tells her to stand up, saying he'll kneel instead. Javel can't figure out why he's so worked up. He has no idea how scary Legis gets when he's mad. She tells Max she won't stand until she says everything to Legis. Hearing that, Legis pushes Max aside and says he understands, then tells Javel to get up. Javel notices that Max and her father suddenly seem almost in sync. Still, she knows it's too soon to relax. She explains that Max acted that way because he loves her so much, promises to help him do better, and asks Legis to forgive him. He agrees right away. Javel is surprised it worked so easily. As both Max and Legis keep telling her to stand, she wonders what to say next when Legis suddenly adds that he'll forgive Max's words. But that doesn't mean he approves of their relationship. Javel tries to persuade him, saying he doesn't have to agree now, just give them a little time. Deep down, Legis still can't accept them, no matter how much Javel pleads. But he decides to let things play out so Javel can see what Max is really like and break up with him herself. In the end, Legis agrees to Javel's request, and both she and Max feel relieved. Javel thanks him, while Legis feels guilty for misleading her because he believes he's protecting her. Javel is thrilled, thinking her father approved the relationship. As she and Max drink tea, she reminds him to write up the contract and asks if he wants anything from her. Watching the elegant way Max drinks his tea, Javel wonders if he might be the runaway son of some noble family. Then Max suddenly blurts out that it's the worst tea he's ever tasted. That makes Javel think he can't be a noble after all, since the tea is top quality and even her father's favorite. Max finishes writing the contract and gives it to Javel. After reading it, Javel sees it's a complete mess and needs fixing. She spends a while editing it, then finally shows the finished version to Max and asks if he wants anything changed. But the second he reads it, he tears up the contract Javel worked so hard on. Javel is left speechless. She thinks that if Max had a problem with it, he could have just said so. It reminds her that he's never cared much about her feelings. He used to leave without a word after she looked after him for days, vanish without answering her, and snap at her again and again. Javel realizes that if they go through with this contract, they'll be seeing each other often, and she doesn't want to be looked down on anymore. So she says she wants to end the contract right now. To be fair to Javel's hard work, she had told Max to read it carefully, and this was his reaction. He expected a few simple rules, but instead got a long, formal agreement. The part saying both sides had to report where they were if they'd be unreachable felt way too much to him. He didn't even demand that from his subordinates. Then another clause annoyed him even more. It said their dates should, if possible, happen in crowded places. Max tore it up out of pure pride, feeling like Javel was treating him like some pet to show off. But Javel doesn't stay quiet. After seeing that, she decides to end the deal before it's even signed, which completely shocks Max. He argues that they already got Legis's permission, so quitting now isn't an option. He reminds her she's supposed to marry the crown prince otherwise, even insulting himself by saying that if she won't fake date him, she'll end up with that trash tyrant. It's almost like he's arguing against himself, but Javel stands firm, saying they aren't a good match and will only wear each other out. Seeing she won't budge, Max says she's deciding too fast. Javel points to the torn contract as proof that he has no intention of meeting her halfway, and says she can't sign with someone like that. Max is caught off guard and remembers how often he treated his subordinates the same way, ripping up papers they brought him. For him, destroying documents is practically a habit. Juvel then tells him she hates being ignored because it hurts her pride and ruins her whole day. Max hears her out, but his pride still tells him he's the one helping, so why should he be careful with her? Yet Juvel seems to read that on his face and says, if helping her is that hard for him, then they should just stop, since she's the one who asked. Max struggles over what to do. Part of him knows that if he keeps being stubborn, he may never see Juvel again. The other part tells him not to care. But when he sees how down Juvel looks, he quickly chooses to drop his pride and apologize to her. Then he obediently signs the contract. The sudden shift confuses Juvel, but at least it works out. Juvel is relieved the contract is finally done, while Max feels strangely manipulated. Juvel is excited to finally act like they're a real couple. She plans to ask Max to go with her to the tea party at Count Terrence's home. Max asks if she knows who'll be there, and Juvel mentions Lady Rosemary and a few other friends. From that answer, Max realizes she has no idea Mikhail is coming too. He suddenly stands and declares that he'll go with her. Juvel wonders why he seems so eager. On the day of the tea party, everyone is surprised when Veronica brings Mikhail with her. She says she followed the rules as host and invited whoever she wanted. Rosemary objects, saying the guest list should have been agreed on first. Mikhail cuts her off, saying Rosemary is the one who usually acts without asking anyone. He grabs Veronica's shoulder and calls Rosemary strict with others but easy on herself. Some of the other ladies agree, pointing out that Rosemary also got permission only after inviting Juvel. So to them, letting in 2 exceptions isn't a big deal. Mikhail smirks and thanks them with a pleasant smile. Rosemary is still uneasy. She worries Juvel will be uncomfortable when she sees Mikhail there. Then the door opens and Juvel walks in with Max, surprising everyone. Mikhail's face darkens at once. He thought he had already cleared the way to come here, so seeing Juvel arrive with another man is a real shock. Rosemary politely asks who Juvel's companion is, and Juvel introduces Max as her lover. The other ladies are amazed by how handsome Max is, and they quickly say he and Juvel look perfect together. Max secretly wishes the ladies would say it louder so Mikhail could hear. Juvel thinks Max is doing pretty well and plans to praise him later, but they forgot one thing. Mikhail is still boiling with anger. The moment Max meets him, he shoots him a cold glare. Mikhail takes it as Max looking down on him. The other ladies eagerly watch the drama unfold. It's a clash between the current lover and the ex. Mikhail still thinks Juvel is only acting to get his attention. He assumes Max is some commoner since Juvel never gave his family name, and believes she picked him just to make him jealous. So Mikhail quickly changes his expression and greets Juvel with a smile. That instantly irritates Max, while Juvel wonders why Mikhail is acting so friendly. Still, Juvel ignores his hand and answers him calmly. Then she thanks Max for coming with her. Max takes Juvel's hand and pulls her close, clearly trying to show Mikhail that Juvel is with him now, while Juvel thinks he's just nervous from the look on his face. Then Rosemary cuts in and invites Max to stay for the tea party, which makes Juvel nervous. The other ladies agree with Rosemary, and Juvel gets even more worried. Max, though, decides Rosemary must be Juvel's biggest ally since she's helping him. Just as Juvel is about to refuse, Mikhail suddenly objects, and Lady Veronica offers Max another room to wait in instead. Juvel sees that as a huge relief. She was worried about managing Max during the party, so Veronica just saved her. Mikhail then tries to charm Veronica, hoping Juvel will notice. Watching Juvel's reaction, he convinces himself she still can't forget him and that he still has a hold on her. But Juvel is actually watching how Veronica acts around Mikhail, which reminds her of how she used to be when she loved him. Even though Mikhail is supposed to marry the princess, he's still acting sweet to Veronica. Juvel just hopes Veronica doesn't end up as a villainess with a tragic ending. While waiting in the room like Juvel asked, Max realizes he can't sit still without knowing what Mikhail might do. Thinking back to Freya's story about how Mikhail treated Juvel, he gets up, ready to act. Meanwhile, Mikhail keeps up the act, trying to make Juvel jealous by asking Veronica to go on a picnic sometime, and Veronica takes it seriously. He wants Juvel to watch everything and react like she used to, but Juvel isn't paying attention to him at all. She's busy talking with Rosemary and the other ladies about Max. When his plan fails, Mikhail feels crushed. Then Rosemary suggests that Juvel join their tasting group as the newest member. Juvel is caught off guard and politely refuses. Mikhail still can't believe what he's seeing. Juvel's attention isn't on him at all. It's on the ladies. As they excitedly welcome a new member, Juvel struggles with whether to accept. But Veronica objects and reminds everyone there are proper steps for joining. Just as Juvel is about to decline again, she notices something and is stunned to see Max up in a tree outside the window. Now Juvel is worried someone else will spot him, so she can't focus on Rosemary explaining the requirements. When Juvel keeps staring at the window, Mikhail follows her gaze and spots Max in the tree, leaving him shocked. Juvel is too busy thinking about how to get Max back inside, so she answers Rosemary without really thinking. The moment Mikhail locks eyes with Max, Max gives him a rude hand sign, which makes Mikhail furious. He gets up from the couch and asks to step out for some fresh air. Veronica reaches for him and tries to follow, but Mikhail jerks her hand away and says he's going alone, leaving Veronica stunned. Meanwhile, Juvel is still worried someone will catch Max in the tree, but when she looks again, he's gone. As the ladies excitedly talk about trying Juvel's special tea, Juvel is completely confused. She was too distracted by Max to follow any of it. When Rosemary says she's looking forward to the tea too, Juvel asks what they mean. They explain that to sign up, Juvel has to host a tea party and serve her special tea. Juvel goes pale. Outside, Mikhail rushes out with a sword in hand, but Max is already waiting for him and mocks him for taking so long, which only makes Mikhail madder. In the restroom, Juvel sighs over the tea party she never meant to host. Then Veronica storms in, upset, asking why Juvel kept staring at her during the tasting and then sighing. Juvel is startled that her feelings showed so clearly. She explains that she's angry at Mikhail because he used her too, and his kindness was never real. That only makes Veronica mad, and she insists Mikhail is not using her the way he used Juvel. Juvel understands. She knows how hard it is to admit something like that, so she apologizes for upsetting Veronica and says she's worried because Veronica reminds her of her old self. Even so, Juvel decides to leave first, telling Veronica she'll still host the tea party, and Veronica doesn't have to come if she doesn't want to. Outside, Mikhail is burning with rage, and his hand goes for his sword. Before he can pull it, Max drives a knee into him and drops him to the ground. Shocked by Max's strength, Mikhail demands to know who he is and why he's with Juvel. Max only glares instead of answering, but a moment later Mikhail's sword is at his throat. With a smirk, Max says he and Juvel are lovers. That only makes Mikhail even angrier, until Juvel interrupts and yells at him to drop the sword. When he turns to her, he calls her Juvelian, but she coldly reminds him he should be calling her Lady Floyan. As Mikhail lowers his sword, he feels Juvel slipping away from him because of Max. In front of Juvel, Mikhail questions their relationship, and she fires back by asking why he pulled a sword on her lover. As he tries to explain, he calls her by name again, and Max cuts in, telling him to address her properly as Lady Floyan. That sets Mikhail off, and when he's about to draw his sword again, Juvel warns that her father won't overlook a palace knight drawing steel so easily. Then, to Mikhail's disbelief, Juvel runs to check if Max is hurt. Seeing that, Mikhail grabs her hand and begs her to listen. Max instantly snaps and orders him to let go of Juvel's hand, but Juvel calms Max and says she wants to speak with Mikhail for a moment. Max frowns, while Mikhail takes it as proof she's chosen him. But when he suggests going somewhere private, Juvel firmly tells him to let go of her hand. That leaves Mikhail stunned, while Max clearly comes out on top. After Juvel pulls free and puts Mikhail in his place, he shouts that she's ignoring him for some uneducated commoner. Juvel and Max just turn back in confusion. Mikhail still thinks she's the same as before. People really can change. Juvel makes it clear she doesn't care about him anymore, but Mikhail throws back that she once said she loved him. Juvel admits she did, but not anymore. As she leaves with Max, she tells Mikhail she wants nothing more to do with him. The other ladies who saw everything slowly back away, but Veronica moves in to comfort Mikhail. He shoves her off and tells her to stop clinging to him like a bug, sending Veronica to the ground in shock. She remembers what Juvel said in the restroom and starts crying as she finally understands how Juvel once felt. In the carriage, Juvel stares at Max and decides he needs to be taught some discipline. She warns him to be more careful in public, especially after what happened with Mikhail, because it could lead to serious trouble. Max just boasts that he's strong enough to beat 10 Mikhails at once. Juvel says she isn't doubting his strength. She's worried about his safety. But Max stays cocky and insists nothing can hurt him. So Juvel stands right in front of him and says she's truly worried. No matter how strong he is, he can't get careless or show openings when he may have enemies waiting to strike. Her words bring back memories of her past life, when the enemies she made left her alone at the worst moment. Seeing her face, Max says he'll do as she asks, surprising her. She hesitates, unsure he really gets that his life could be at risk. Max says he understands. She doesn't want him attacking nobles or fighting back against them. Relieved, Juvel thanks him for understanding. Still, Max admits he enjoys putting annoying people in their place. Even so, seeing Juvel worry about him makes him think being nice might be worth it. Back at the Floyan house, Max is stunned to learn Juvel's dinner invitation wasn't meant for just the two of them, but includes her father too. Legis fixes Max with a sharp stare and tells him to sit. Max freezes, so Legis repeats himself even more harshly. Seriously, Dad, be a little nicer to Max. Juvel had no idea her father was actually home, which is why this turned into such an awkward surprise. Max sits beside her as the servants bring out the food. Juvel quietly tells Max to use the outer spoon for soup, which confuses him since he already learned proper manners long ago. But before he can say anything, Juvel gives him such a trusting look that he decides to follow her lead. Then a servant asks how they want their steak cooked, and Juvel quickly orders both hers and Max's medium rare. Max goes pale because he hates undercooked meat. Still, he keeps following Juvel's directions on the utensils and misses his chance to object. Legis watches as Juvel wipes sauce from Max's face and thinks Legis thinks Juvel has been fooled again and shouldn't trust men so easily. When the steak is served, Juvel insists on cutting Max's for him herself. Max feels awkward about it. Watching this, Legis calls Juvel over. He doesn't like Max making her use her delicate hands to cut his food. Max tenses up when he sees Legis point a knife his way and worries for his life. But Legis only wants Juvel to hand over Max's plate so he can cut the steak himself. Juvel takes it as her father trying to get along with Max. While cutting the meat, Legis notes that the inside doesn't match the outside, using the steak as a jab at Max's attitude toward Juvel. Max, however, catches the meaning right away and sees through Legis acting like he accepts them. But Juvel assumes her father is only talking about how medium-rare steak looks. Then Legis suggests they have tea together later. Juvel reads this as proof that Legis cares about Max, while Max really wants time alone with her. Even so, Juvel agrees and offers to serve tea she made herself. Legis and Max are both moved hearing she'll make tea for them personally. Then the butler steps in and tells Legis that the Emperor urgently summoned him to the palace. Juvel tells Legis it's fine to go and they can have tea another time, but Legis says Juvel's tea matters more, and Max quickly agrees. So the three of them end up having tea together. At the same time, Juvel quietly worries the Emperor may hate her. Legis praises her tea, which makes Juvel happy. After that, Legis asks Juvel to leave first because he wants a word with Max. Once Juvel is out of the room, Legis asks Max what he really wants with her. Max immediately stands and demands to know what Legis means by that. Then he suddenly stops, realizing just how deep his feelings for Juvel have become. Still, Legis presses him and tells him to quit pretending to be Juvel's lover. Blushing, Max admits he loves her, and Legis is stunned. Max insists his feelings are real, and says he truly fell for Juvel. He thinks back on the time they spent together, how he first got close to her for his own reasons, but ended up feeling calm and comfortable around her. Around Juvel, he doesn't feel the need to act tough. He'll even do things he normally can't stand. Even losing to her doesn't bother him anymore because he's scared she might leave. All of that made him realize that he loves Juvel. Legis still can't believe what he's hearing, but Max says he won't change his mind, no matter how shocked Legis looks. He also complains that Legis keeps treating him like a demon when he isn't one. Even after Max says he's not a demon, Legis still sees him as the one who stole his daughter. Max firmly says he has no intention of breaking up with Juvel, leaving Legis speechless. Meanwhile, Juvel wonders if Max and her father are getting along. Even if it wasn't planned, she sees tonight as a good sign. She takes their dinner together as progress. Thinking about how Max and her father looked at each other, she finds it strangely captivating. Then Max knocks on the window, pulling Juvel from her thoughts. She's surprised but happy he actually knocked first, even if he still came through the window. When Juvel opens it, she notices Max is bright red and asks if something happened, reaching for his face. Max's heart pounds wildly. With a softer smile, he squeezes Juvel's hand. He says he finally understands. For Max, it feels like the darkness inside him has been covered by light. Juvel has no idea what he means. Max sits close and keeps staring at her, making her uneasy. She asks what he talked about with her father, and Max says Legis doubts their relationship. That shocks Juvel, even after all her effort to act loving toward Max. Max suggests they spend more time learning about each other and sharing what they like. But Juvel's mood changes fast as she worries Legis might uncover the truth since he keeps pushing her toward the prince. Caught off guard by that, Max asks if she hates the crown prince that much. Juvel says the crown prince terrifies her, and rumors say he killed his closest servant for no reason. Max can't tell her the servant had actually tried to poison him. Even though he tries to stop her from judging the crown prince by rumors, Juvel is still afraid the prince could kill her. Feeling stuck, Max asks if she'd marry the crown prince if he promised not to kill her. A chill runs through Juvel. She starts thinking Max is oddly obsessed with the prince, but says she might consider it if the crown prince promised to spare her. Max is thrilled and thinks that if he just tells Juvel he won't kill her, they can marry. Juvel, meanwhile, can't stop shivering with the crown prince's image stuck in her mind. Suddenly, Max stands and says he should leave, wanting to fix his reputation. It's time for him to head back to the palace. As Juvel sleeps, she feels uneasy and dreams about her childhood with her mother. In the dream, her mother says they're playing hide-and-seek and tells her to stay hidden in the wardrobe until she says it's safe to come out. Little Juvel asks if her father will play too, but her mother suddenly says the other person is a monster and warns her not to let it find her. Scared, Juvel asks what happens if the monster does. But before her dream mother can answer, a huge hand grabs her small neck, and the crown prince appears, telling her she's going to die. Juvel jolts awake in shock. She feels sick and thinks about calling for a doctor. The dream about her mother stays on her mind, even though she doesn't truly remember her. At the palace, the emperor is furious as he reads a report. Legis arrives and greets him, but the emperor only complains that he took too long. Legis apologizes and says something delayed him. The emperor ignores that and orders Legis to leave for the south at once. Legis is shocked. The emperor says he received word that Margrave Lennox may be planning a rebellion after gathering an army without permission. Margrave Lennox, Lord of the South and a brilliant strategist, has always kept a strong army. With troops gathering now, it more likely means he's preparing for a possible invasion from Regan. Legis thinks the emperor is again twisting loyal actions into betrayal, and he hates being sent away from Javel for such a pointless order. He tries to persuade the emperor, explaining that Lennox has always been loyal and has long defended the empire from Regan. The emperor smirks and says Lennox is only loyal because he refuses to be controlled. He adds that he never doubts Legis's loyalty, since Legis has no choice but to stay by his side. That leaves Legis both angry and helpless. He wants to kill the emperor, but can't. Not now, when all he can think about is Juvel being left behind. His precious daughter still carries the wounds he caused. She suffered just for loving a father he believes never deserved it. Legis thinks he deserves Juvel's hatred forever, because what he did can't be forgiven. Even so, his love for her has never changed. He wonders if he can simply remove the collar on his neck and finally love Juvel freely. His thoughts are cut off when someone enters, shocking both him and the emperor. It's Max in his crown prince form, cheerfully saying he missed his father. The emperor is completely thrown by his sudden appearance. Max asks if they were discussing something important, then fixes the emperor with a cold stare and demands to know what it was. Fear hits the emperor as he realizes Max has grown strong enough to threaten him. He worries Max may move against him if Legis is gone. Legis quickly tells Max he's receiving a confidential order and asks him to leave. But Max raises his voice, acting offended that Duke Foyen would command him. Legis answers that staying would mean disobeying an imperial order. Watching Legis stand against Max, the emperor remembers he still has his loyal weapon and decides he needs Legis close to keep Max under control, so he chooses to send someone else south. Meanwhile, the empress is furious to hear Max has returned to the palace, especially since every assassin she sent after him has failed. Then the princess approaches and calmly tells her mother that if her brother is back, they should welcome him warmly. Legis leaves the palace thinking about how the emperor canceled the order and kept him on protection duty instead. A small smile appears on his face when he realizes Max can be used to pressure the emperor and keep him from being sent south. But as Legis walks down the hall, Max stops him and asks for a brief talk, wanting Legis's permission. In Max's room, a servant brings drinks, and after she leaves, Max takes off his helmet. Legis asks what he wanted to discuss. Max asks what happened during Legis's talk with the emperor. Legis reminds him it was a confidential order, and Max clearly dislikes that answer, already thinking of other ways to get the truth. He then brings up the earlier assassination attempt on his father, but Legis brushes it aside. With dry sarcasm, Legis says the one behind it still hasn't been found. His cold stare makes it clear he suspects Max, but he'll let it slide as long as Max stays away from Juvel. Max tries to throw his weight around with Legis, but he gets nowhere again. Legis then asks to take his leave, quietly telling Max that because of him, he no longer has to go south. Before leaving, he warns Max with a sharp look to stay away from his daughter. Frustrated, Max throws the cup beside him, but the knight in the room catches it and points out that it costs a fortune. After that, Max starts thinking about what to do next. His first plan is to send Juvel a letter as the crown prince, but he quickly realizes Legis would likely have the butler destroy anything from him. So Max decides to ask Freya for advice. The knight then says that if advice is all he needs, he can help too. Max calls Victor over, and Victor lifts his helmet. Max hands him his own helmet and warns that if his real identity is exposed, it won't end well. Then Max leaves. Annoyed, Victor slams the helmet to the floor and starts grumbling, but Max suddenly calls to him from behind. Victor instantly makes up an excuse, saying the helmet was too slippery. Max asks him how to send a letter without the head of the house finding out. Victor looks confused, so Max reminds him that he's known as the biggest playboy in the army. With a hard look, Max demands an answer. A little later, Max ties a note to a bird's foot and threatens the bird if it fails to deliver the message. As it flies off, Max wonders if Juvel will stop worrying once she reads it. In her room, Juvel is busy writing something down. She's nervous about the tasting event, especially that her clash with Veronica might keep people away. Then she looks toward the window and suddenly yelps when a bird starts pecking at it. Shaking, Juvel watches the stubborn pigeon keep trying to get in. Just then, Marilyn comes in with a tray of desserts and is shocked by Juvel's fear. Juvel begs her to chase the pigeon away. Marilyn quickly grabs the tray and throws it at the bird. The pigeon flies off and Marilyn spots a letter tied to its foot. She tells Juvel it's a carrier pigeon, which only confuses her more. Carrier pigeons are usually used for secret messages, mostly in war. not between nobles. Juvel instantly assumes the letter is a threat, while Marilyn guesses it could be a love letter. Juvel can't shake the feeling that something dangerous is behind it. The pigeon returns to Max, and his anger makes the poor bird tremble. Then Freesia steps out from behind him and notes that he tried sending a letter by pigeon. Max says it was for Juvel, but it never made it. Freesia asks what he wrote, and when he says, "I will not kill you," she's relieved it never got there. She explains why that message would have felt like a knife to the heart. Freesia also tells him that if he wants to meet Juvel as the crown prince, he needs a proper reason. Max agrees. As he lets the bird go, he asks for the latest palace news. Freesia says word has reached the Emperor that Margrave Lennox is gathering troops. Max thinks it over and figures nearby Regan may be getting ready to invade. Freesia adds that aside from more food being stored, nothing else looks suspicious, and the official reason is famine relief. Even so, Max decides to meet Margrave Lennox. That shocks Freesia, who warns it's too dangerous. Since Lennox has lost the Emperor's favor, meeting him could look like treason, but Max sees a chance here. If it works, they could gain the south and pull the whole empire to their side. The opening is already there. Now he just has to win the people's support and use it to grow stronger. On the day of the tasting event, Juvel is still tired from last night's pigeon scare, though she's glad things worked out. Marilyn tells her the guests have arrived. Rosemary warmly greets her first, and Veronica comes right after. Juvel is surprised Veronica actually showed up. By custom, both the master and mistress of the house should welcome guests, even at a small gathering. But knowing her father, Juvel assumes he won't bother and plans to handle it alone. Then the guests suddenly stare past her in surprise. One lady quietly asks Rosemary if Juvel has an older brother. Rosemary says no, leaving Juvel confused. When she turns around, she's stunned to see Legis coming down to greet everyone. Juvel can't believe it. She never told him about the party because she thought he'd never come out for something like this. The guests bow to Legis, but he tells them to skip the formalities. He says he's proud that Juvel arranged the party on her own and gently pats her head. Flustered, Juvel thanks him. She can feel how much he's changed, treating her like a truly treasured daughter. When the tea is served, Rosemary is impressed by the taste, and the others praise it too. One lady asks how Juvel made the flavor so special. Juvel spaces out for a moment until someone calls her name. Then she explains that she gives the tea a floral scent by storing petals or fruit with the tea leaves. That lets the fragrance soak in and makes the tea taste better. The ladies are even more amazed after hearing that. But really, it all came from Juvel's hard work and from the flowers she protected with her life. From afar, Legis watches Juvel and smiles at how happy she looks. He wonders if she knows she's the reason he still wants to live. His thoughts drift back 13 years to when he came home covered in blood and collapsed onto his bed in frustration. The blood on his hands reminded him how powerless he felt, and he hated not knowing how long he'd have to keep living as the Emperor's weapon. Then the door opened, and little Juvel walked in, happily greeting him. She came closer, but Legis felt he couldn't face her like that. When he didn't answer, Juvel climbed onto the bed and curled up in his arm. She patted him and said a little prayer, asking that he be protected and that the world grow bright enough for him to smile too. Legis was so moved, his eyes filled with tears. In that moment, he knew Juvel was his comfort and his savior, and he swore to love her forever. That memory changes Legis's expression. Juvel notices right away, and when their eyes meet, he suddenly turns and leaves, confusing her. Then Veronica announces that the crown prince has returned to the capital. Everyone is shocked, especially Juvel. Not long after, Max arrives and apologizes for being late. The ladies are instantly charmed by him. Juvel tells him to sit beside her. As all eyes turn to them, Veronica blurts out, relieved that Juvel already has a partner and won't be picked as crown princess. Both Juvel and Max are startled, but for very different reasons. Juvel is horrified by the idea of becoming crown princess, while Max takes it as a goal. The other ladies are alarmed too and start whispering about the crown prince. Hearing them insult him right in front of him, Max silently endures it. He glances at Juvel, hoping she won't join in. The girls keep spreading ugly rumors, saying the crown prince is hideous and cruel, and that the former empress drove him out of the palace for that reason. Max is shaken, and Juvel feels they've gone too far. To stop it, Juvel says they shouldn't judge the crown prince without meeting him first. He might be nothing like the rumors. Her words deeply move Max. The other ladies agree. But Juvel's real worry is that if they keep insulting him, they could get in trouble for speaking badly about the imperial family. Max is struck by the fact that Juvel refuses to judge someone by rumors alone. Rosemary agrees, admitting she first thought Juvel was scary because of gossip too. Juvel avoids her eyes, remembering she really had acted like a villainess not long ago. Rosemary says Juvel has actually been kind and gentle, and the others join in, praising things like her sharing the secret of her tea. Then Veronica cuts in, saying Juvel's place in the tasting group should be judged fairly. She notes that the tea was just plain Darjeeling, but still praises it, and shyly accepts Juvel as a member of the tasting event. After the party, Juvel feels worn out as she thinks about joining the group. She isn't that happy about it, since being around lots of people still makes her uneasy. Max remembers what Madame Fresha told him about Juvel, that society always gossiped about her, which may be why she pushed people away and treated them badly. He realizes he's drawn to Juvel because they've gone through similar things. 13 years earlier, people accused young Max of killing animals and called him a demon capable of cruel acts. Max ran to his mother, crying as he swore he didn't do it and begged her not to hate him. She held him close and told him the real reason she had warned him to stay away from her. She worried Isabel might have hidden poison somewhere nearby, but his mother told him she had always believed in him. That memory comforts Max. He turns to Juvel, smiles, and pats her head, telling her she'll do great in the tasting group. His words make Juvel blush. Then Max says he has work to handle and won't be seeing her for a while. Surprised, Juvel asks if it's another mercenary job. Max tells her not to worry. It'll be easy for him. Relieved, Juvel thinks he's stronger than he looks. Then Max notices her makeup is smudged. When Juvel tries to wipe it off with her handkerchief, he teasingly snatches it away. Leaning close, he jokes that she better not flirt with other men. They're a couple now, even if it's only by contract. After that, Max says goodbye. And before Juvel can answer, he vanishes. 2 months pass after the tasting test. They've had 4 more tea parties, and Juvel has grown closer to the other members. Even so, she still feels lonely. Legis has been busy, and Max hasn't contacted her once. While thinking about that, Juvel overhears some ladies talking about Reagan declaring war on Hachette. She and Veronica, on the way to the temple, stop to listen. Seeing Juvel worry, Veronica says there's nothing to fear. Hachette won a big victory thanks to the Crown Prince. She says Rosemary's older brother mentioned that the Crown Prince and Margrave Lennox held the Empire's defense with plans they started 2 months earlier. The Crown Prince even charged into the enemy camp himself, cut down their commander, and ended the war. Now the palace is preparing a victory celebration next month, and every noble has to attend. Juvel is stunned. Meanwhile, Legis meets someone in a bar while disguised. He apologizes for meeting the man like this. The man says it's fine since they're both busy. He says Max made quite a show of himself by winning the war, and as a magician who can't return home, he sees hope if Max becomes emperor. Legis explains he came in secret to ask about Cersei's ring. Back at the temple, Veronica sees Juvel looks ready to collapse and tells her to rest while she gets a night. While Juvel waits, a priest comes over and asks to see her hand. Before Juvel can ask why, the priest grabs it and starts speaking like she's giving a prophecy. She talks about a time traveler and says Juvel made the wrong choice, one that could lead to deep sorrow and a sacrifice from someone who loves her. Uncomfortable and angry, Juvel pulls her hand away. Then she starts to leave, but the priest stops her and demands 1 gold coin for the prophecy. Nearby at the fountain, people whisper about a crying woman. It's Princess Beatrice, crying alone to calm herself. Isabel got furious after hearing the palace would hold the victory celebration close to Beatrice's coming-of-age ceremony. Juvel walks away from the priest, still annoyed, and accidentally bumps into the princess. Their eyes meet. Not knowing who she is, Juvel quickly apologizes. Seeing the woman crying, Juvel thinks about leaving her alone. But after hesitating, she turns back and offers Beatrice her handkerchief. Instead of thanking her, Beatrice snaps and asks if Juvel is pitying her. Still, she uses the handkerchief to wipe her nose. Then Beatrice opens up, saying people's expectations are crushing her, and sometimes she wants to give up. Juvel asks if she has a coin and tells her to toss it into the fountain with a wish. Beatrice doubts it will help, but she throws in the coin anyway. To both their surprise, it lands right in the center. Juvel says that means her wish will come true, but Beatrice says that won't fix anything. Juvel just smiles and says little things like that can still lift your mood. Just then, Juvel hears Veronica and the knights calling for her, so she says goodbye and hopes things get better for Beatrice. Remembering her mother's lessons, to be perfect and never show weakness, Beatrice tells herself she can't depend on kindness like that. She steps on Juvel's handkerchief and leaves in irritation. At the Floyan estate, Legis anxiously waits for Juvel, who still hasn't returned. Then her carriage finally arrives and she looks exhausted. Juvel is startled when Legis calls her out for being late. She explains she got stuck talking at the temple and lost track of time. Legis understands and says he was worried. Juvel is surprised he isn't angry. She admits she's been frustrated lately and wanted a change, so she stayed out too long. Looking at her face, Legis wonders if she's been down ever since Max left for war. He begins to think he may have to accept Juvel and Max together, since Max will protect her when he can't. Later in the dining room, Juvel can't eat. Even a cherry tomato reminds her of Max. She regrets not asking him to send letters. Seeing how down she looks, Legis mentions that the Crown Prince won a huge victory and will return soon. He adds that the victory banquet is coming up, assuming Juvel must be excited. That catches her off guard. She starts cutting her meat a little too hard and says attending feels more like duty than something to look forward to. Legis asks whether she has a dress for the banquet, then hands her a blank check. He tells her not to worry about the price and to buy whatever dress she wants. Juvel is shocked and wonders if he wants her to impress the crown prince. After meeting Legis's eyes, she can't refuse and thanks him. Meanwhile, Max races across the fields on horseback. One of his knights tells him to slow down before the horse drops dead, but Max refuses. He can't wait another second to see Juvel. When he spots Juvel still awake by the window, he finally feels relieved. Blushing, he knocks on the window. The horses and knights are completely worn out, saying Max must be a monster because he covered in one day what should have taken 4. The knights can't figure out why Max was in such a rush, other than making them suffer. Meanwhile, Max nervously wonders if Juvel will still welcome him. Seeing her with her maid, he waits outside. Juvel seems to be begging for something to help her sleep, but her maid warns her not to overuse it because of the side effects. Still, Juvel looks so desperate that the maid gives in. Even as she tries to sleep, Juvel keeps thinking about tomorrow, her party dress and meeting her friends after. Then she hears a soft voice call her name. Max appears before her. Thinking she might be dreaming, Juvel reaches out and pinches his cheeks. Still unsure if he's real, she suddenly breaks into tears and says she was worried, sick and angry he never contacted her. Crying, Juvel admits she thought something awful happened to him, or that he got tired of her and left. Max hugs her and promises that if he ever has to leave again, he'll send letters. Little by little, Juvel calms down and falls asleep in his arms. As he watches her sleep, Max notices the sleeping potion by the bed and sees why it worked so well. But he also realizes it dulls the mind, almost like being drunk. Max plans to leave and return tomorrow, but suddenly Juvel grabs his collar in her sleep and pulls him closer, making his heart pound like she's asking him to stay. He strokes her hair and decides to sleep beside her. Elsewhere, Legis visits his wife's grave and thinks back on their time together. He remembers when they both cried, and Amelia blamed herself for ruining his life. But Legis comforted her, saying everything would be fine because his love for her would never change. Then he notices a card tied to the flowers on the grave, sent by the magician he met before. The note says he's investigating what Legis asked and will contact him soon. He also mentions Juvel, calling her Legis's treasure. That brings back memories from their past life, when Juvel died. Legis knows he can never be forgiven for that death. This time, he swears he'll save her. In Juvel's dream, Max looks completely fine, and that makes her furious. If he was really okay, the least he could have done was contact her. So in the dream, she takes it out on him. After letting all that anger out, Juvel feels way better. She feels completely refreshed. But when she opens her eyes, someone's holding her in bed, and Juvel panics. That means last night, when she was crying, clinging to him, it was all real. Once she realizes it, her face turns bright red. Then Max grabs her hand and asks what she's doing. Juvel awkwardly says she just had a bad dream. As he strokes her face, Max asks if it was a nightmare and tells her not to worry. He promises he'll stay by her side from now on. Then he teases her, saying he never thought she'd miss him so much she'd cry like that. Too embarrassed to take it anymore, Juvel jumps up and invites him to breakfast. At breakfast, Juvel keeps a straight face, acting like she remembers nothing. She thinks if she plays dumb, Max can't tease her, but he keeps smiling. Meanwhile, Max is just happy to be eating with the girl he loves. Then he suddenly asks about Juvel's nightmare. Juvel gets nervous about telling the truth, so she quickly lies. Avoiding his eyes, she says the crown prince showed up in her dream. That makes Max feel all his work was useless. Even if the prince's image has gotten better, Juvel is still scared of him. Quickly changing the subject, Juvel asks where he's been. Max answers shortly that he was on the battlefield, which shocks Juvel and makes her ask if he was drafted. Bitter, Max wishes he could just tell Juvel he's the crown prince. Pushing those thoughts aside, Juvel asks Max if he's all right. Meanwhile, Max thinks that if he tells her who he really is now, all the trust he's earned will fall apart. He brings up the prince's victory banquet and suddenly asks what she'll do if the prince asks her to dance. The question sends a chill through Juvel. Still, she says she won't go near the prince at all. She plans to hide so well he won't find her. Half curious, half bothered, Max asks where, and Juvel plainly says the terrace. Wanting time alone with her at the banquet, Max suggests a quieter place instead. Juvel wonders how he knows about it. Max gets up and says he heard about it from the palace knights. He's set on clearing up every misunderstanding. He steps closer, brushes dirt from her face, and tells her to hide well there. Of course, the very crown prince she's trying to avoid will be the one to find her. In the Ashtet Empire, while the nobles praise the crown prince for defeating Reagan, the crafty emperor smirks and says the prince got that courage from him. But he quickly adds that it's still nothing compared to Legis's achievements, and the nobles do their best to hide their displeasure. Legis sees right away that the emperor is using him to show his displeasure over the prince's success. The main reason the Empire still follows the Emperor, besides Legis's support, is their fear of Max, who used to be known as a tyrant. Still, Max's image has improved a lot. Legis thinks that if people stop fearing Max and start respecting him, they have about 6 months left until the Empire's foundation day. Then Max suddenly appears before the nobles and the Emperor, catching them off guard. Behind his mask, he's smiling as he says he's returned from the battlefield to greet his father, the Emperor. Seeing him arrive, Legis chooses to trust him and hopes Max can become the Empire's light this time. The Emperor puts on a false welcome and praises Max's great service. Max answers humbly and credits the Emperor's guidance, but his calm reply only irritates the Emperor more. He also thanks the Emperor for preparing the victory banquet. The Emperor then says the banquet is close to Max's sister Beatrice's coming-of-age ceremony. With a smirk, the Emperor asks what Max thinks about letting Beatrice host it. Before Max can reply, the nobles jump in and call it a wonderful idea. They say a successful party by the princess will raise Max's prestige and show closeness between prince and princess, creating a better mood. Legis can tell everyone speaking up supports the Empress, and they clearly want Beatrice to be the center of the event. But Max doesn't fight it. He understands what they're trying to do and calmly lets them have their way. To Max, none of that matters much. His real goal is fixing things with Juvel. Looking at Legis, Max realizes he needs to be most careful with the one man who still hasn't accepted him as Juvel's partner. He asks for permission to leave, firmly resolved not to give up on Juvel no matter what Legis does. Now over to the Empress's side. The Empress Isabel vents her frustration. All the money she spent spreading rumors about Max now feels wasted since he's returned praised for his achievements. Isabel takes it out on Beatrice, blaming her for failing to win public favor. She even says she should have had a son instead, which crushes Beatrice. Isabel orders Beatrice to prepare the prince's party perfectly. Coming closer, she strokes her daughter's hair and says everything she does is for Beatrice's sake, then warns her not to fail again. Her face changes at once as she says the party must be a huge success and also make Max look insane. Through her tears, Beatrice agrees. And so, the long-awaited victory banquet finally arrives. At Florian's house, the maids gush over Juvel and say she'll be the star of the party. They don't know she picked a dark dress on purpose so she wouldn't stand out. Then Legis walks up behind her and says the carriage is ready. Juvel is thankful her father will draw more attention than she will. As they ride to the palace, Juvel looks downcast. She thinks this is her first time back since her rebirth, and she hopes she'd never return. The bad memories come rushing back. Then Legis says her name and tells her she looks beautiful. Juvel is stunned. She never expected praise from him. But Legis quickly adds that the crown prince will surely like how she looks, which only makes her more anxious. He also says people no longer see the prince as a tyrant, but as the hero who saved the empire. Legis says Juvel should be proud of him. Not knowing the truth, Juvel wonders why she would be proud. She admits she's surprised and never expected the prince to do so well in war. She says she'd always thought Legis would be the one to save the empire from Reagan, just like before. That catches Legis off guard, and he tells her he's sure she did believe in him, but what Legis truly wants to save most isn't the empire. At last they reach the palace, and when Juvel steps out, Legis gently takes her hand. Juvel knows she still has one problem she can't avoid, meeting the crown prince. Still, she calms herself by thinking she won't even be in the ballroom. Once inside the palace, they see the emperor and empress on their thrones. Juvel can't help thinking she's standing before the people tied to her death in her past life. Legis quietly tells her to keep her eyes down and not lift her head. They greet the emperor and empress, and the emperor remarks that he finally gets to meet Legis's precious daughter. In response, Legis tightens his hold on Juvel's hand, leaving her confused. The current emperor of Asheti, Darius Separon Asheti, is a cold father who doesn't even treat his son like family. At his side is Empress Isabel Rosti Ash, a woman who seems to enjoy hurting her own daughter. Juvel decides the best thing is to stay out of their way, so she keeps her head lowered, as Legis said. The emperor says he's pleased to meet Juvel at last. With a sly smile, he asks if Legis's daughter will be coming of age soon, and Legis answers that her ceremony is in 3 months. Clearly plotting something, the emperor smirks and tells Juvel to raise her head. She freezes at the order, but the announcement of the crown prince's arrival interrupts and saves her. The emperor is annoyed that Max has shown up without warning again. Perfect timing, Max. The emperor finally lets Juvel and Legis go join the party. Juvel can't believe she's about to see the cruel prince in person, without realizing he's already been close to her all along. Max comes down the stairs, his face hidden by a mask, dressed in dark formal clothes fit for the crown prince. His expression looks cold. Really, he's just tense about facing Juvel as the prince. That icy look fills the crowd with unease and curiosity as they wonder what's behind the mask. Juvel wanted to memorize the prince's face before running off, but the mask ruins that plan. Then Max's eyes land on Juvel, making her shiver. To Max, she just looks cute. To Javel, he's terrifying. And Legis is left wondering what Max is thinking. Legis calls to Javel and tells her friends are looking for her, urging her to go to them. Javel quickly hurries to her friends, while Max can only wish he could call out to her too. Standing by the throne, the Emperor asks Max why he's wearing the mask everyone is talking about. The Empress cuts in at once, mocking him for having no sense of style after growing up on battlefields. She throws Max a nasty smile, but Max stays calm and says the mask was a gift from his sister, who told him it would be a masquerade ball. Apparently, he was the only one told that. The nobles start whispering that the princess must have made the mistake on purpose. Realizing where this is going, Isabel snaps and accuses Max of insulting Beatrice's hard work. Max remains composed, says he knows exactly how much Beatrice did, and even thanks her for the attention he's getting. He adds that thanks to her thoughtfulness, he could even hide his war injury with the mask. Isabel is left speechless, clearly furious at his neat comeback. The nobles, impressed, praise Max's bravery in protecting the empire, and say the mask only adds to his mystique. The scheming empress can only burn with anger, unable to answer back. Meanwhile, after seeing all this and sensing trouble, Javel desperately looks for somewhere to hide. At last, she finds a quiet place to be alone. She feels relieved, though a little guilty for leaving her friends behind. She remembers the hiding spot Max mentioned, and while searching for it, she looks around carefully. Then she hears someone crying nearby. She still doesn't realize the woman is the princess, but she does remember seeing her at the temple. Knowing the palace knights are searching for someone, Javel realizes she can't let them find this woman. Wanting to calm her down and lead her back to the banquet, Javel walks over and asks if she's okay. But the knights' calls for the princess grow louder, and Javel finally realizes the crying woman in front of her is the princess. At once, memories from her past life rush back, reminding Javel that the princess is the first threat to her survival. Tears still falling, Beatrice looks at Javel. Beatrice quickly covers Javel's mouth and tells her to stay quiet. Still hiding Javel, she keeps her hand over her mouth. Beatrice urgently tells her to stay silent and follow along. Javel can barely believe the girl she met at the temple days ago is actually the princess. In her past life, Javel was supposed to meet the princess for the first time at her coming-of-age ceremony. But instead, they meet here at the prince's banquet. As Beatrice drags her along, Javel wonders if avoiding the prince was pointless. They enter a room, and Javel can't stop thinking this may be pushing her closer to her death flag. Then Beatrice suddenly looks angry and lashes out at Javel for seeing her cry, even though tears are still on her face. She hurriedly claims it was only dust in her eyes. Beatrice warns that if Javel tells anyone, she won't forgive her. Back in the banquet hall, Max searches the crowd and realizes Javel slipped away just like she wanted. Just as he's about to find her, the Emperor stops him and asks where he's going. Max says he's tired and needs to rest, but the Emperor clearly doesn't believe him and looks annoyed. Max figures his father is upset because the nobles have been focused on him all day. Trying to leave fast, Max says the war's fatigue is finally catching up to him, but the Emperor compares him to Legis, who achieved something similar and still stayed by his side the whole time, and questions Max's stamina. Max can't believe his father still thinks Legis is loyal. He says nothing, and in the end, his father reluctantly lets him go. As Max leaves the hall, he wonders what the Emperor is holding over Legis. He has noticed signs that his father trusts Legis far too much to think he'd ever betray him. Max is sure there's something hidden between them. When Max reaches the hideout he told Javel about, he's shocked to find it empty. Meanwhile, Javel and Beatrice are still stuck in an awkward moment. Trying to reassure her, Javel says the knights have probably left and asks if she can go. But Beatrice questions why Javel is being so formal and tells her to act like before. Feeling cornered, Javel knows she shouldn't get tied up with the princess, but Beatrice suddenly opens up. She admits she did everything she could that day to earn her father's approval, and it still wasn't enough. No matter how hard she tried, no one recognized her. Hearing the hurt in her voice, Javel asks if it's really worth going that far just to be accepted by someone else. From her own experience, Javel says she once judged her value by what others thought of her. Looking at Beatrice, she says only she can decide her worth. What matters is living by her own thoughts and beliefs. Beatrice has never thought about putting her own feelings first. In the future, Javel remembers, Beatrice shines brighter than anyone. Blushing, Beatrice looks away and says Javel can call her R. Javel is startled by how close that sounds, but it seems the two are getting connected fast. Meanwhile, Max searches the palace in a panic, asking everyone if they've seen Javel. He's getting more frustrated because he can't find her, and worry starts to grow, making him fear something happened. Then Legis appears behind him and coldly points out that Max failed to protect his daughter. Back with Javel, Beatrice suddenly stands and asks her to leave with her. Javel wonders if she's feeling better now. Beatrice gives back Juvel's handkerchief and thanks her, but Juvel says it's fine and she can just toss it. Blushing, Beatrice admits she couldn't throw it away and kept it to return it herself. After their meeting at the temple, she had even gone back to pick it up after stomping on it on purpose. Holding Juvel's hand, Beatrice leads her to the door, but just as they are about to leave, the door opens. To Juvel's shock, the crown prince is standing there. His presence is so fierce and angry that Juvel freezes. Before this, here's what happened between Max and Legis. Max begged Legis to tell him where Juvel was, even bowing to him in respect. Seeing how serious he was, Legis finally told him where she was and urged him to get to her before the Empress's knights did. Max was stunned and demanded to know why they were after Juvel. Legis said Juvel was with the princess, and Max immediately suspected the Empress was using his sister to reach Juvel. Seeing his worry, Legis says nothing serious has happened yet. That calms Max a little. His feelings for Juvel are still secret, so they likely wouldn't target her through him. Determined, Max says they'll talk later after he brings Juvel back. As Max rushes off, Legis puts his trust in him, believing Max is the only one who can protect Juvel now. And that's how Max found her here. Both Juvel and Beatrice are startled by Max's sudden appearance. When Max sees Juvel is safe, he feels relieved, but that look only scares her more, and even Beatrice notices. The siblings trade looks. Max tells Beatrice to stop causing trouble, especially for Juvel, while Beatrice silently fires back that Juvel is scared because of him. Meanwhile, Juvel feels like she just brought the worst pair together. In the original story, the prince and princess hate each other, and every noble knows the divide between the pro-empress and anti-empress sides. So Juvel assumes Max came here to hurt Beatrice. Max reaches out, and Beatrice looks ready to take it as a challenge. Juvel can't let this get worse, so she gathers her courage, greets the prince, and introduces herself. Then she looks into Max's eyes, making him blush. Juvel smiles at him, already regretting acting on instinct. But with Max looking like he might explode at any second, she forces herself to stay calm and apologizes, saying she and her friend got lost and wandered in by mistake. She admits they didn't know better because there were no guards and asks him to forgive them. Under Max's intense stare, Juvel starts trembling in fear. The prince hasn't even spoken, but his gaze alone is enough to shake her. What she doesn't know is that Max is blushing because she looks even prettier up close. With a softer look, he offers his hand and asks her to come outside with him. Juvel is stunned by the sudden invitation and can't process it. Once she settles down a little, she realizes the prince himself is offering to escort her. Watching her brother take Juvel's hand, Beatrice gets annoyed. Max suddenly seems like a different person. Even his voice is gentle. She wonders if he's faking it to win people over. But her irritation shifts to curiosity when she notices his expression change. Juvel then asks Beatrice if she'll return to the banquet with them. Beatrice hesitates, then says she has something else to do. Juvel squeezes Beatrice's hand and warmly invites her to visit for tea and talk sometime. Touched, Beatrice blushes and says Juvel is welcome at her place too. Seeing how close they suddenly are, Max grows uneasy and wonders when that happened. Now that the princess is safely gone, Juvel knows she needs to leave without causing trouble. She bows to thank Max for escorting her and asks to be excused. But as she's about to go, she steps on her dress and starts to fall. Max reacts at once and catches her before she hits the ground. Their faces end up inches apart, making things awkward. Juvel quickly tries to pull back and thanks him for catching her. But when she tries to move away, his grip tightens, leaving her confused. Max just keeps staring at her without blinking, which makes her uneasy. She asks if there's something he wants to say. Still blushing, Max pulls Juvel closer and hugs her tight. He tells her to stop avoiding his eyes and look at him, then reveals that he is Max. Juvel is even more confused by that sudden confession. Max touches his mask, ready to take it off and show his face. Red-faced and hesitant, he asks if he really looked that scary to her. He apologizes for lying all this time, and Juvel gently reaches up to touch his face. Happy to learn the prince is really Max. Their faces move closer, and Max closes his eyes for a kiss. But let's get back to reality. Max finally snaps out of it as Juvel thanks him and asks to leave. She quickly walks away, leaving him speechless. Yup, all of that was just Max's imagination. By the time he comes back to his senses, Juvel is already gone. After escaping him, Juvel decides the prince is a total weirdo. In reality, Max had been hugging himself and smiling while Juvel stared at him in confusion. Meanwhile, Max feels miserable and deeply regrets what he did in front of Juvel. He can't believe his feelings for her made him lose control like that. Still, now that they've met, he just needs to find a way to see her again. Back in the banquet hall, Juvel is completely exhausted. All she wants is to go home as fast as possible. She looks toward her father and is surprised by how much everyone loves him. Legis notices Juvel staring at him and leaves his conversation to walk over. Smiling, he holds out his hand and tells Juvel it's time to go. Juvel is surprised that her father is being so thoughtful. As they walk off together, Legis thinks she had probably been alone again. But since she's here now, he figures Max brought her back safely. Juvel, meanwhile, is only thinking about eating strawberry cake when they get home. As father and daughter walk together, the nobles praise them, saying they look like the perfect pair. But hearing that only disgusts Legis. It brings back the time those same nobles accused Juvel of poisoning the princess and demanded her execution. At that time, Legis had just lost the daughter he loved most, and in his rage, he quickly wiped out every one of those nobles without hesitation, showing the depth of his grief. Then the emperor's voice cuts into his thoughts, asking if he's leaving already. In his drunken state, the emperor whines about who will protect him if Legis leaves. Legis answers that he came as the duke, and the palace knights can guard the emperor just fine. That makes the emperor grumble that Legis has been annoying him lately, which scares Juvel. With a nasty grin, the emperor tries to pressure him, asking if Legis isn't worried and telling him to come to his senses. Without pausing, Legis meets his eyes and calmly says he's drunk. The emperor doesn't back down and asks what Legis plans to do about it. Right then, a clear image flashes through the emperor's mind, Legis cutting off his hand. Terrified, he quickly warns that if Legis kills the emperor, Legis will die too. He imagines Legis covered in blood, sword raised, saying he doesn't care about his life because he can't live without his daughter. A chill runs down the emperor's spine, and he hurriedly lets Legis leave. Still shaking, the emperor wonders what was hidden in Legis's eyes. Unable to understand why Legis would oppose him when the emperor still has the ring that can control him. As he watches Legis and Juvel leave the palace, the emperor keeps wondering why Legis has become so openly defiant. Max goes to Madame Frecha and asks how to write a sweet letter to a woman, since he's never done that before. After hearing her advice, Max throws himself into writing Juvel a heartfelt letter, filling it with compliments and affection. He works on it day and night, and finally finishes a 20-page love letter. Then he sends it off with a pigeon, after jokingly threatening the bird if it fails to get it to Juvel. The next day, Juvel is surprised to get a letter and starts reading it. At that moment, Max suddenly comes in through the window. He asks what she's doing, and Juvel says she got a letter. She thinks it's from Lady Christine and that it's a threat. Uneasy, Max asks if she got any other letters, but that's the only one. Max starts wondering if the pigeon messed up the delivery and ran off to escape punishment. What Max doesn't know is that the pigeon did reach the Floyan house, but Legis's pet bird intercepted it, and Max's precious 20-page letter was burned right away. Now Juvel is ready to visit Lady Christine's home. Worried for her safety, Legis is about to send the usual dozen knights with her, but Juvel says that's too much. She adds that Geraldine can protect her alone. Juvel already knows the real sender was Mikhail's mother, and she's ready to teach them a lesson. When she arrives at Viscount Marsh's home, the lord and lady greet her awkwardly and lead her to Mikhail's mother, who is waiting inside. Juvel gets right to it and asks what she wanted to discuss. Mikhail's mother says Mikhail is sick, and Juvel simply prays for his recovery. As she turns to leave, Mikhail's mother suddenly explodes, blaming Juvel for his illness and saying she must take responsibility. She even reaches for Juvel and demands that she come see Mikhail at her house. Marilyn steps in after sensing danger, but Mikhail's mother slaps her across the face, then says, Marilyn dared to interrupt and starts lecturing Juvel about controlling her servants. Seeing the scratch on Marilyn's cheek, Juvel puts on a fake smile, turns to Mikhail's mother, and agrees to visit the Hessen residence. When they arrive, Juvel stops Geraldine from coming in, even though he's worried. She tells him to wait outside and send for a doctor for Marilyn instead. Inside, Giselle, Mikhail's sister, greets Juvel by asking for a jewel, just like Juvel used to give her. Juvel answers with a sharp slap across Giselle's face, stunning both Giselle and her mother. With a hard stare, Juvel says she's only training those beneath her. Even then, Giselle calls her by name, so Juvel coldly asks how a marquis's daughter dares address a duke's daughter so casually. Juvel is furious and storms around breaking the things she once bought for them, the sculpture, the portrait, and when she's about to destroy more things in the closet, Mikhail's mother tries to slap her. But Mikhail suddenly appears and calls out to Juvel. He looks seriously ill, and though Juvel never wanted to see him, he walks over and says he missed her badly. Watching from outside, Max feels sickened by Mikhail. Juvel notices Max outside and is confused about why he's there. It turns out Max was sent by Legis, who was deeply worried about his daughter. Earlier, Legis had caught Max hiding in a tree and told him to come down. He also admitted he read Max's letter to Juvel before burning it, and couldn't believe Max used a tiny pigeon to carry a 20-page confession. Max thought Legis was being way too protective and invading their privacy. Then Legis turned serious and asked if the letter truly reflected Max's feelings for Juvel, and Max said yes. Without facing him, Legis told Max to protect Juvel no matter what, making Max wonder if Legis had finally accepted him. That's how Max ended up here. After spotting Max, Juvel decides she's done at the Hessen house, but Mikhail follows her and insists they talk. He begs for another chance to start over, saying he now understands his mistake. Juvel firmly says she wants nothing more to do with him, especially since she has a lover now. Hidden nearby, Max can't stop himself from smiling. Mikhail gets angry and grabs Juvel, claiming she belongs only to him. Max jumps down, shoves Mikhail away, and stands in front of Juvel while warning Mikhail. Then he gently asks Juvel if she's hurt. For some reason, Juvel suddenly remembers dancing with the crown prince. Max turns back to Mikhail, ready to teach him a lesson. Juvel's heart starts pounding when Max holds her hand tightly. With Max burning with anger and Mikhail still provoking him, Max reaches his limit and moves to shut Mikhail up. Afraid things will get worse, Juvel steps between them and begs them to stop. Max snaps that Mikhail never truly loved Juvel. He just wanted to own her. Mikhail coolly answers that Juvel is his, which only angers Max more by treating her like property. Hearing Mikhail make light of her feelings, Juvel slaps him. She says she truly loved him once and calls him trash. Mikhail stares in disbelief and answers with the same arrogance. But Max cuts him off and warns that if Mikhail hurts Juvel again, he'll kill him if he has to. Max vows to protect Juvel and says they'll live happily together. Then Geraldine arrives, saying he'll handle Mikhail and that Juvel should go with Max. Inside the carriage, Juvel thanks Max for helping her. As she treats the wound on his hand, she thanks him again for saving her and standing up for her. She also admits that even if his talk about living happily together was just an act, it still moved her. Max squeezes her hand and says he meant every word. Then he kisses her hand, confesses his love, and says he wants to end their contract relationship. Juvel starts wondering whether everything Max has done until now was real. Max plainly says he wants to end the contract and truly date her. Juvel wonders if the ease she feels with him and the loneliness when he's gone means she's in love. She tells Max she needs time to think. Her heart is pounding, but Max says he'll wait no matter how long it takes. Even so, he's starting to worry that Juvel might reject him. He also wonders when he should tell her he's the crown prince. While he keeps stressing over it, Juvel falls asleep as if she forgot someone confessed to her just half an hour ago. Max gently rests her head on his shoulder so it won't slump forward, but even if he looks calm, his heart is racing. Back at the Floyan house, Legis waits for Juvel. The moment she returns, he asks for an explanation. Seeing Geraldine there, Juvel wonders if he already reported everything, so she decides to tell the whole story from beginning to end. She even admits she destroyed all the gifts she gave the Hessen family so they couldn't demand payment for damages. Knowing Legis had always covered the cost whenever she caused trouble, she feels guilty. So this time, she tried to make a scene that wouldn't cost too much. After hearing that, Legis smiles and even thanks her for thinking of him. He finds her consideration so cute that he laughs. Juvel feels a huge weight lift off her chest and goes on to tell her father that she met Mikhail and talked with him a little. As Juvel starts explaining, tears suddenly spill down her face. That catches Legis off guard. Even Juvel doesn't understand why she's crying. Legis immediately gets on his horse, his eyes turning sharp. He says he'll destroy anyone who dared hurt his daughter. After wiping Juvel's tears, Legis tells her not to cry and promises he'll be back soon. Juvel feels a burst of joy knowing her father is on her side. Seeing how angry Legis is, Max thinks Mikhail is seriously done for. At the Hessen house, a panicked servant runs in and tells Mikhail's parents to get out because the front gate has collapsed. Before they can understand what's happening, Legis crashes through another wall and steps inside with a deadly stare. Furious, Marquis Hessen demands to know what Legis is doing. Legis throws down a bag of money for damages and tells them to move. Then he tears through the Hessen house with one blow. Marquis Hessen and his wife beg him to stop, but Legis refuses, saying trash who forgot their place dared to hurt his daughter. Mikhail shows up, stunned by the scene, and still arrogantly asks Legis what's going on. Legis says he's here because a worm like Mikhail hurt his daughter, so he's destroying this place. He adds that he knows how the Hessen family has treated Juvel all this time, and he only stayed silent because Juvel didn't want him to step in. After that, Legis leaves them shaking. In her sleep, Juvel dreams about her childhood. She sees her father approaching her in blood-stained gloves and clothes. Back then, little Juvel was frightened, but when Legis turned away, she begged him not to leave. Juvel suddenly wakes up and grabs Legis, who came to check on her. Crying, she begs him not to go. Once she calms down, Juvel asks why he's there. Legis says he was worried she might still be upset about what happened earlier. With more courage now, Juvel thanks him for going to the Hessen family for her and says she was happy he stood by her. Legis gently holds her hands and tells her he's always on her side. Tears falling again, Juvel says she's wanted to talk to him because he's been so kind to her lately. Before, he acted distant and barely noticed her, so she thought he'd given up on her and would leave someday. Hearing that, Legis finally breaks down. He apologizes and says it's all his fault, admitting that the way he tried to protect her only left deep wounds and made her believe he didn't love her. Legis pats Juvel's head and tells her to rest, promising they can talk more next time. He then kisses her forehead goodnight and tells her to sleep well. Juvel is stunned by that and wonders if she's dreaming. Meanwhile, at the palace, Max storms into the Emperor's room without knocking, startling the Emperor, who is meeting privately with Count Pyrex. Count Pyrex sees Max and asks to be excused. Max instantly suspects they were scheming and considers having Pyrex followed. The Emperor tells Max he'll be Beatrice's partner at her coming-of-age ceremony. Max can barely believe it. Earlier, the Empress told Beatrice to pick Mikhail as her partner, but Beatrice refused. Then the Emperor suggested the King of Regan to strengthen ties between the kingdoms. Beatrice felt awful, thinking her father only saw her as useful, especially when he picked that old pervert. So she ended up naming Max instead. Meanwhile, in Juvel's room, she's happy that the item she ordered from Ian Theodore has arrived. A whistle she can use if she's ever in danger. Then Max suddenly comes in through the window. He blushes when he sees Juvel adorably trying the whistle. He asks how something like that is supposed to protect her. Juvel blows it so loudly that even Max jumps. She explains that people can hear it from far away. Max then says he brought her something too. Kneeling before her, he offers himself, so she can call for him anytime. Whether she needs protection, wants to eat cake, or just feels lonely, he'll come. Hearing how sincere he is, Juvel smiles and realizes she loves him. She's about to confess when Geraldine knocks and tells Juvel to open the door because he heard strange noises from inside. Juvel opens up, says she's fine, and complains that the guards have gotten too overprotective. Geraldine notices Max trying to slip away, and dryly says that's because a stray cat keeps visiting her room. Then he takes Max along to see Legis. With a stern look, Legis says he needs to speak with him. He warns Max to stop sneaking in through Juvel's window and use the door from now on. Max asks if that's all, but Legis asks whether he's noticed anything strange about the Emperor. Max says he saw Count Pyrex meeting with the Emperor, which suggests they're plotting something. Legis reveals that the Emperor's top knight, the Shadow, has been watching Juvel, and that worries him deeply. Then, in a serious voice, he asks Max to have his men watch the Emperor, saying only Max can do it. Max is shocked to see Legis asking like this. Legis is known as the God of Battle, and Max knows that title isn't exaggerated at all. He knocks Legis's hand off his shoulder and says that if Legis wanted, he could wipe out the Emperor's men and Pyrex in a moment. He asks how long Legis plans to keep fearing the Emperor. Still unable to understand him, Max asks what Legis is really afraid of. Legis doesn't answer directly. He only turns away and tells Max to leave since it's late. What Legis truly fears isn't the Emperor or anyone else. It's himself. On the day of Beatrice's coming-of-age ceremony, she feels nervous and hopes everything goes well. Then she's suddenly caught off guard by Max's arrival. And just like that, their sibling rivalry begins. Soon they walk side by side into the hall. The tension between them keeps going, but both keep smiling in front of the guests. Max tries to stay calm because the one he really wants to see is Juvel. When their eyes meet, Juvel feels a chill run through her. Beatrice is disgusted too, like she can see Max's real face even through the mask. As the party begins, the Empress insists Beatrice dance with Mikhail, even though she already said no. Then Mikhail walks up, greets them, and boldly asks Beatrice to dance. Beatrice wonders why he's suddenly being so pushy. Earlier, Mikhail met with the Empress in private and revealed that he knew she was pregnant. She got furious and asked if he was threatening her. Mikhail calmly says he only wants to protect what matters to her. He points out that she's always worried Beatrice will be overshadowed by the Crown Prince, and offers to stand beside Beatrice so both of them can get what they want. That's why the Empress keeps pushing Beatrice toward Mikhail. With no good way out, Beatrice reluctantly agrees to dance. But then, a servant drops a glass right in front of Max, causing a scene. Instead of getting mad, Max handles it calmly and kindly. That draws everyone's attention to him, and Beatrice uses the chance to leave Mikhail and refuse the dance. Watching from afar, Juvel wonders if the Crown Prince did that on purpose. But when the Crown Prince looks her way, his smile scares her. As she turns away, Juvel notices her father and quickly goes over to talk to him. Earlier, Legis spoke with a magician, but they found no clue about breaking the contract tied to the Circe ring. Still, Legis became sure the Chamber of Shadows was the key, since it seemed like the perfect place for the Emperor to hide it, so they agreed to investigate the chamber. Now it was time to act. Legis notices the Emperor's men watching him from afar. As he leaves the hall, he cleverly lures them in, but then Juvel calls out from behind him and startles him. Afraid she may have seen something, Legis puts on a gentle, worried smile. Juvel says she wants to spend more time with him. Legis thanks her and promises he'll join her after he handles something first. Then Beatrice suddenly comes over and asks if she can spend time with Juvel. Meanwhile, in the hall, Max looks around but can't find Juvel. He starts worrying that some guy might be bothering her. With Juvel and Beatrice invites her to tea. But on the way to Beatrice's room, they find Mikhail already there. He starts flirting and making excuses, but Beatrice flatly says she's not interested and tells him to leave. Mikhail's tone changes as he brings up how the Empress's pregnancy threatens Beatrice's place. That shocks Beatrice and makes her anxious. Yuvel doesn't just watch. She quickly goes to Beatrice and hugs her to comfort her. Mikhail is surprised to see Yuvel there, but he keeps pressuring Beatrice to accept him. Yuvel reminds him that Beatrice already told him to leave, but Mikhail has no intention of backing down. He orders the guards placed there by the Empress to bring Beatrice to him and drag Yuvel away. With no other choice, Yuvel blows her whistle as hard as she can, but Mikhail snatches it away and crushes it underfoot. Even then, she still hopes Max or Legis will come save them. Right when things are about to explode, someone suddenly rushes in and kicks Mikhail away. Yuvel and Beatrice are both stunned when they realize it's the Crown Prince. He looks truly furious. Yuvel can't understand why the Crown Prince is here, but he doesn't hold back his anger. He drops the guards in seconds, and just as he's about to hit Mikhail, Beatrice stops him, begging him not to kill anyone. Max then reaches for his sword, but Yuvel notices his injured hand and begs him to treat it first. So Max backs off and spares Mikhail. As they care for Max's hand, Beatrice thanks him for saving them. But Max quickly turns his focus to Juvel and picks up her broken whistle. Beatrice tells Max to take Juvel back to the banquet hall since she needs to speak with her mother. Because of Beatrice, the two return to the hall together. Max is nervous, worried Juvel may now fear him after what happened. As he's about to leave, Juvel suddenly asks him to dance with her. Max freezes in shock, barely able to believe it's really happening. His heart pounds so hard he can't even hear the music. Dancing with Juvel as the Crown Prince feels unreal to him. Juvel smiles, pulls him closer, and whispers in his ear, asking if he had fun fooling her while saying Max's name. Max tries to dodge the question and pretends he doesn't know what she means. Juvel doesn't let it go. She says they need to talk and tells him to meet her on the terrace. Then she excuses herself and leaves, while Max is left deeply worried. He's confused because this is nothing like what he hoped for. While waiting, Juvel is overwhelmed with emotion. Learning Max is the Crown Prince explains a lot. His random arrogance despite acting like a commoner, and those moments when he seemed so refined. Finding out he was the person she wanted to avoid hits Juvel hard and leaves her disappointed. Soon Max arrives, still hiding behind his mask. It's clear he wants to keep pretending. Juvel brings up his offer to date her and turns him down, which shocks Max. She tells him she's hurt that he hid being the Crown Prince. Then Max drops to his knees, apologizing and saying he never meant to deceive her on purpose. He says he hid it because he was scared she'd leave if she knew. He begs her to look at him again, reconsider, and let him stay by her side forever. As Max keeps apologizing, Juvel wonders why he's trying this hard. She remembers when he once told her he loved her, and now she's confused about what he truly feels. Slowly, Juvel takes off his mask and sees that Max is crying. Throwing away his pride, he tells her he loves her and begs her not to leave him as tears run down his face. Juvel wants to believe him, and she realizes that if Max really is the Crown Prince, then what she believed in her past life may have been wrong. She gently touches his face and tells him not to cry. Then she softly kisses his forehead. Seeing her smile, Max finally feels relieved. He leans in toward Juvel and gently kisses her lips, showing how deeply he loves her. They keep kissing, making it clear they both feel the same. When they finally pull apart, Juvel admits she's out of breath, and Max quickly apologizes. Then Juvel makes him promise never to lie to her again and to respect her and listen to her. Max agrees right away. Juvel can't help thinking he looks adorable. She points out that he should have told her the truth sooner when she talked about the Crown Prince. Max says he couldn't, because whenever she mentioned the Crown Prince, she talked about him like he was a demon from hell. Juvel can't really argue with that. Max asks if she finally believes him now, and if she understands the Empress was behind the cruel rumors. Holding his face, she tells him she does believe him and that she knows he's kind and caring. Hearing that makes Max incredibly happy. Meanwhile, in the palace dungeon, Legis returns there for clues about the Circe ring, even though he hates coming back. He needs the magician Devon to help break a magic barrier. When he spots the item Devon gave him, he knows Devon is close. But Count Pyrex suddenly shows up and spots Legis. Holding Devon's artifact, Count Pyrex threatens him, telling Legis to come out if he wants to save his friend. The Emperor and his men have already caught Devon, and they know he comes from the same place as Amelia, Legis's late wife. The Emperor reminds Legis about Amelia's death and threatens to make Juvel die the same way. Unable to hold back anymore, Legis releases his power and attacks the Emperor. But the Emperor doesn't flinch, because the Circe ring now has the power to release the demon it has kept sealed inside Legis all this time. Once freed, the demon asks Legis about turning back time and says only Legis can hear him. Then it brings up Juvel's suicide and, to push him further, mentions Amelia's death too, trying to drive Legis into complete destruction. Legis fights to resist, but in the end the demon takes over his body. Once it fully controls Legis, the Emperor orders him to kill Devon. Just before he can strike, brief memories of Amelia surface and try to bring him back. In one desperate move to fight the demon, Legis stabs his own thigh and tells Devon to run. Even so, Legis is still partly under the demon's control despite trying to resist. Back in the banquet hall, Juvel gets more and more worried because her father still hasn't returned. Her fear eases a little when she sees him walking with the Emperor. When Legis leaves, Juvel tries to go to him, but he only gives her a cold glare. Confused by his reaction, Juvel is approached by Max, who asks what's wrong. She suddenly asks what he'd do if she were jailed for trying to kill the royal family. Would he torture her and have her executed? Max strongly says he'd never hurt the person he loves, and that Juvel and Legis are the only family he has. Juvel then asks what he would have done before they fell in love. Uneasy, Max says Legis would have acted first, either going himself or sending Max. He makes it clear how deeply Legis loves her. Hearing that, Juvel thinks back on her past life and begins to see she misunderstood Legis. She realizes Legis truly loves her and wonders why he kept his distance before. Juvel guesses he may have had a secret he couldn't tell her, and she becomes determined to learn the truth about his past actions. A whole week passes, but Juvel still can't get a real conversation with her father. Every time she tries, he makes an excuse, which leaves Juvel frustrated. By now, she's sure Legis is avoiding her on purpose. Nearby, Marilyn is holding a tray of snacks, but Max steps in and quietly asks for the tray. Busy thinking about what to eat, Juvel doesn't notice who's feeding her until she realizes it's Max, which pleasantly surprises her. Looking worried, Max asks what she's been thinking about so deeply that she didn't even hear him come in. Then he wraps an arm around her from behind, saying he missed her and has been buried in work all week. Being in Max's arms makes Juvel feel warm and safe. But then she suddenly remembers Legis carrying her as a child, and it gives her a sharp ache in her chest. Concerned, Max tells her to lie down and rest. At the same time, Legis is outside Juvel's room, listening. He knocks, and when he enters, he sees Max and Juvel standing very close. A dark aura surrounds Legis, stunning both of them. When he asks about the comment about lying down, Juvel panics and hurriedly says it's not what it looks like. Still giving off a threatening presence, Legis tells Juvel he needs to speak with Max alone. Out in the hallway, Max asks about Legis's leg, but Legis denies being hurt. It's obvious he's hiding something. Earlier, Max had heard from his men about something suspicious in the Chamber of Shadows. They couldn't look deeper because it was too dangerous, but they did see Legis there with blood on his leg. Max can't understand why Legis is carrying all this alone. They end up in the sparring room, and Max is still confused. Legis throws him a sword, and while taking his own, he brings up what Juvel once said about her ideal man. With his blade drawn, Legis says Juvel wants someone stronger than him, so if Max wants her, he has to surpass Legis. After the Emperor used the ring's power, it took Legis half a day to regain control of himself after the princess's coming-of-age ceremony. The ring's influence faded fast. But the real problem is that the Emperor now knows about Devon. Legis fears the Emperor will use the ring again and control him like a puppet, turning him into a monster that could hurt the people he loves most. Still, Legis figured out one thing from that incident. The Emperor activated Cersei's ring by draining Devon's mana. So if there's no one for the Emperor to drain, he can't control Legis. As long as Devon stays free, Legis can buy time. That's why he's been searching for him. That's also why he had to turn down Juvel's request. While he kept searching for Devon and still couldn't find him, Legis realizes this is the only way to protect his daughter. So he declares that Max has to surpass him. Pointing his sword at Max, Legis orders him to fight and win. Max's resolve hardens, and he says he won't lose if Juvel's future is on the line. The fight starts with Max rushing in, but Legis dodges with ease. Legis keeps pushing him, baiting Max into harder attacks. He gives Max no opening at all, saying he won't allow Max to marry Juvel at his current level. During the spar, Legis keeps pressing Max and even cuts his face. Legis has never gone easy on him. He was the same when Max was younger, always pushing him to get stronger for the people he wants to protect. Max, full of resolve, swears he'll surpass Legis, but Legis is still far better, and Max gets pushed to his limit. Just as Legis moves in to strike the helpless Max, Juvel rushes in and desperately calls out to her father. Then her face turns red when she realizes she called Legis dad, like a little kid. Right after that, memories from her childhood with her parents come flooding back. Times when they were truly happy. Juvel never expected to remember any of that, and it hits her hard. Seeing her shaken, Legis immediately grows worried. Once Juvel calms down, she apologizes for calling him dad, but Legis gently pats her head and tells her she can call him that if she wants. That only makes tears spill down Juvel's face, though she doesn't even know why. Both Max and Legis get worried, and Legis even asks if he did something wrong. Juvel admits she's scared he'll go back to treating her coldly like before. That leaves Legis with mixed feelings, and he pulls Juvel into a hug while apologizing. Max tries to cheer her up too, joking that fathers-in-law are usually the quiet type, and Juvel laughs and agrees. Later, while they have tea together, Max openly fusses over Javel. Watching them act so sweet, Lee just reminds Max he still hasn't approved him. He says that until Max can beat him in a spar, he should stop getting too touchy with Javel and definitely quit calling him father-in-law. Max argues he was only trying to comfort her. Lee just snaps back that cake is enough comfort and tells him to keep his hands off her. Javel suddenly thinks about how she used to be terrified of the crown prince, and Max admits that really hurt him. Lee just turns serious and asks if Max had been hiding his real identity from Javel the whole time. Javel explains that she found out during the princess's coming-of-age ceremony. Holding back his anger, Lee just says he thought Javel was dating the crown prince knowingly, but she calmly explains she started the contract relationship because she believed Lee just planned to marry her to him. Trying to ease the tension, Max awkwardly jokes that at least they know the crown prince is cute and adorable. That only makes Lee just angrier, and he says he regrets taking Max as a student instead of sending him to hell to study under the devil. Javel stands and asks to leave so Max and Legis can keep talking alone. Legis still can't believe Max dared to deceive them, but Max calmly says he didn't lie. He just didn't tell them. Then Max brings up Cersei's ring and says they need to understand what it is, which makes Legis go pale. Through his own sources, Max already learned the identity of the magician who was with Legis in the Chamber of Shadows. After the current emperor took power in the Asha Empire, a law banned anyone but the royal family from using magic, and people were told the empire's magicians had gone into hiding. But high-ranking nobles whispered a different story, that the emperor had kidnapped them and was experimenting on them in the palace dungeons. Freccia told Max a strange letter had arrived at the salon. The writing on the case was so unfamiliar, she thought it was code. When Max looked closely, he recognized the same code Legis had taught him for the battlefield. He decoded it, opened the case, and found letters inside. What he read shocked him. Back in the present, Max keeps pressing Legis to explain Cersei's ring. Legis takes a drag from his cigarette, acting calm, and says he has no idea what Max means. Max doesn't back off. He asks what Legis was doing in the Chamber of Shadows and says he already looked into the person who was with him. When Max mentions Devon, a magician from Floyan territory whom Duke Floyan officially declared dead 10 years ago, Legis is clearly shaken. Max also says Legis faked Devon's death to protect him from Darius. Then he shows the letter he received, which he believes came from Devon and ties back to the magician who helped carry out the Emperor's last wishes. In it, the magician confesses his sins, saying he became like a demon by helping Darius, and now plans to end his life to save the world. He admits he followed Darius's orders, stealing mana from many of his fellow magicians and giving it to the Emperor. He knew those people would soon die, but he was too afraid to give up his own mana, so he couldn't stop. As the war went on, the Emperor's hunger for mana grew so extreme that women and children were even kidnapped. That made the magician wonder why the Emperor needed mana at all when he couldn't feel or use magic. While investigating, he uncovered the true origins of the Asha Empire, the first Emperor, the evil dragon Fafnir, and Cersei, the goddess of magic who protected the Empire's magicians. He also learned about Cersei's Eye, a magic stone where Cersei used all her mana to seal Fafnir away. The Emperor always wore a ring holding Cersei's eye, treating it like part of his own body. The letter says only the royal family can use the ring, and if it is fed mana, Fafnir inside grants its owner absolute control. Still, parts of the letter are damaged and unreadable, and Max is trying to restore them. Even so, he's already found the part that matters most to him. The ring's contract holder, the one bound to serve the Emperor, is Legis Adrefloyan. Max demands to know why Legis made a contract like that. Legis, clearly unwilling to explain more, tells Max to leave. Still, he offers a deal. They'll spar twice a week, and if Max beats him, Legis will tell him everything and allow him to marry Yuvel. The truth is, Legis never made that contract for the Emperor. He did it only to protect his beloved wife, Emilia. At the Hessen residence, Mikhail is boiling with frustration over his failed plan. Seeing how upset he is, Radian steps in and points out that the first Asha Emperor was a magician, yet no one has shown magical powers for 3 generations. He hints that the princess might be the one born with magic. The idea delights Mikhail, and he starts plotting how to use it for himself. At the Floyn residence, Juvel warmly welcomes her friends and introduces Beatrice to them. At first, the ladies are a little uncomfortable around the princess, but once Beatrice chats with Juvel and smiles warmly, their tension slowly fades. They're here to help Juvel get ready for her upcoming coming-of-age ceremony. During their talk, Beatrice notices Max watching from outside. She goes over and asks why he's there. Max shocks her by saying Juvel is his wife, but Beatrice brushes it off as another one of his delusions. Max then brings up Mikhail meeting with the Empress. Beatrice quickly says she already told the Empress everything needed about Mikhail's character, so there should be no problem. Then Juvel suddenly appears behind them. Max quietly tells Beatrice not to reveal the secret that Juvel is his wife. In the end, Beatrice treats it like nonsense and heads back inside. When Juvel asks Max to greet her friends, he politely refuses, especially with Beatrice there. He knows she's a terrible actress and worries she might accidentally expose him as the crown prince. Max explains that he hides his royal identity because there are always people looking to take advantage of any weakness. That's why only a few people know the truth. Legis, some trusted allies, and Juvel. Then Max opens up to Juvel about what happened after his mother died. After her death, Isabel became empress and tried to poison Max. When that failed, she spread cruel rumors about him. Max turned those rumors to his advantage, making people fear him so much that no one dared challenge him. But it also pushed away Juvel, the person he cares about most. Hearing that deeply moves Juvel, and she wraps him in a warm, comforting hug. Later, back at his place, Max asks if the letter restoration is finished. As he reads the restored parts, he's stunned by what he finds. The letter reveals that the contractor and the master share a life bond. If the master dies, the contractor dies too. Max has always chased two goals: killing Darius and taking the throne. But Legis kept delaying him and hiding signs of rebellion instead of helping directly. Now Max realizes it was all because of that life bond, and it deeply shakes him. He understands how serious it is and how close it came to driving Juvel into despair. Determined to stop that, Max orders Frisia and Victor to watch Pyrex closely and search the old palace records and artifacts for more about Cersei's ring. At the Asha Palace, Mikhail is granted an audience with the Emperor. Based on what he found in an ancient book, Mikhail is convinced Beatrice is the Empire's hidden magician because of her red hair and eyes. The Emperor says he once thought the same. When Beatrice was born, someone claimed they sensed mana from her, but that hope was crushed when it turned out to be false. After Beatrice failed to meet his expectations, the Emperor had no choice but to use Cersei's ring to enslave the Empire's hero and take back his throne. Mikhail knows the Emperor still hopes Beatrice could be the Empire's magician, so he boldly suggests a way to awaken that hidden power. He says the first Emperor's magic awakened when she was in danger. Mikhail proposes doing the same by putting Beatrice in a life-or-death situation. The Emperor laughs at the nerve of it, then agrees. Back at the Floyan estate, Legis is busy working when someone knocks. Thinking it's Derek, he says to prepare the finest coming-of-age ceremony for Juvel without even looking up. But when he finally looks, he's startled to see Juvel there with food. Juvel says she wants to plan her own celebration now that she's an adult. Her determination clearly moves Legis. But then a pigeon comes in through the window, and Juvel panics. She quickly asks to leave. Seeing his pet pigeon Sally, Legis realizes Juvel is still scared of small birds. Then he notices a letter tied to Sally's foot and starts reading it. It's from Devon, letting Legis know how he's doing. Devon also says he sent the item they were looking for to Max, Legis' student. He apologizes, saying he wants to help, but he can't return to the Empire anymore. So Legis is left with no choice but to help Max take the throne. That's why he's trained Max so hard, even if it looks too harsh at times. During one session, Max nearly injures his neck and barely avoids disaster. Then Geraldine comes in with news about the hunting competition. The topic shifts, and Max reveals the prize. It's a prize necklace made from a rare underground flower, a royal heirloom usually given as an engagement gift. Max adds that the Hessen family wants the flower too, because salon rumors say Mikhail plans to propose to the princess. Max says he won't let his little sister marry Mikhail, so he'll win the competition and ruin that plan. Then he says he'll give the prize to Juvel when he proposes at her coming-of-age ceremony. That clearly annoys Legis, who says Max has to beat him first before asking for his daughter. After a brutal day of training, Max tells Juvel he nearly died because of Legis. Juvel tries to comfort him, but he's still upset, so he asks if he can rest a bit, and she agrees. She soon regrets it when Max pulls her into a hug, making her blush. When Juvel tries to move away, Max gently keeps her close. He kisses her on the head and asks if she was waiting for him. Juvel says no, but his boldness catches her off guard. Max teases that maybe he should leave then, but before she can answer, he softly kisses her lips. Then Max gives back the handkerchief he borrowed from Juvel and asks her to embroider something on it for the hunting competition. Juvel thinks about what an embroidered handkerchief means among nobles and wonders if Max even knows. She hesitates, and Max says it's fine if she doesn't want to. Even so, he really wants one made by Juvel. Thinking about how badly she's shown her feelings, Juvel finally agrees, and Max is thrilled. Later that night, Juvel worries about Beatrice's safety. Originally, Mikhail was supposed to win the hunting competition and earn the princess's favor. Then a monster attacked Beatrice, and Mikhail happened to kill it, bringing them even closer. But after Mikhail's recent actions, Juvel doubts that monster attack was just luck, so she decides to get ready for what's coming. Right now, her biggest problem is Max's handkerchief. The dragon she's sewing looks more like a cat. While she's struggling with it, Legis comes in and sees her working. He asks what she's doing, and Juvel quickly hides it, saying it's nothing. Then Legis gives her a box with a beautiful necklace inside. It was meant for her coming-of-age ceremony, but he now tells her to wear it to the hunting competition. Confused, Juvel asks why it's important. Legis says it was left to him by the only woman he ever loved, and that it will protect Juvel. He explains that Amelia meant to give this keepsake to Juvel when she became an adult. That brings back memories of Juvel as a baby and of Amelia, who carefully prepared the necklace. Every day she poured her magic into its mana stone so it could protect Juvel. Remembering that, Legis looks a little bitter. Then Juvel quietly asks if her mother really loved her. She says her memories of Amelia are blurry, and only recently has she started recalling small happy moments of the three of them together. Legis gently hugs Juvel and assures her that Amelia loved her deeply, saying Juvel was a precious gem to both of them. At last, the day of the hunting competition arrives, and the participants are full of excitement. When the Floyan group arrives, everyone notices them. Even the Floyan knights catch the ladies' attention. Seeing Geraldine's odd expression, Legis asks Juvel about it, and she guesses Geraldine is trying to look charming for the ladies. Geraldine suddenly shouts that the Floyan knights are the Ashset Empire's protectors and the guardians of its women. That catches Legis and Juvel off guard and makes them both blush hard. Legis decides he'll discipline his knights after the competition. Once everyone is gathered, the Emperor opens the hunt. Elsewhere, Mikhail stands by a beast's cage and promises it will be released soon. Juvel finally manages to slip away with only one guard after telling the other knights to stay put. She meets Max at their usual spot and gives him the handkerchief she embroidered, along with a small charm pouch. Juvel says the scent inside will protect him. Max is deeply touched by the gift and thanks her before kissing her softly. At the royal viewing area, Beatrice asks her parents if she can watch with her friends. To her surprise, the Emperor says yes and tells her he's already prepared a place for them. Beatrice is overjoyed. As she goes to find her friends, she runs into Juvel. Suddenly, someone hidden from sight bumps into Juvel, and the mana stone in her necklace changes from purple to yellow. When Juvel turns, she sees Devin. Smiling, he says she looks more like Amelia than ever. Beatrice asks what Juvel is staring at, but Juvel wonders if she's the only one who can see him, and how he knows her and her mother. Legis suddenly appears, worried, saying he's been looking for Juvel. When he notices the necklace's changed mana stone, he looks even more alarmed. He asks which way Juvel came from, and when she tells him, he says he has to leave for a moment. He orders his knights to escort Juvel and Beatrice back and rushes off, clearly uneasy. Juvel quickly calls after Legis and hands him the charm pouch she made. She says with confidence that it will protect him. Legis smiles softly and pats her head, thanks her, then heads into the forest. Back in the stands, Juvel gives her friends the same protective charms she gave Max and Legis. She tells them to keep the pouches close wherever they go. Deep in the forest, Legis searches for Devin. He realizes the necklace's color change was a signal Devin left on purpose. It's the same color the mana stone turned when Darius drained Devin's power. Then Devin's voice reaches Legis, warning him not to turn around because the Emperor's spies are nearby. Devin explains why he came. He warns that Juvel is about to become an adult, which means the memories sealed on the day of Amelia's funeral at Legis's request can soon be restored. Legis looks deeply worried, afraid Juvel will remember her mother's tragic death. He says he wants to spare her from that pain, but Devin gently reminds him Amelia's death was not his fault. He says Legis must let go of that guilt, because the seal blocks not just the pain, but Juvel's precious early memories too. Legis admits he's afraid that if those memories return, Juvel will fully realize how much he loves her. And when he dies someday, she'll suffer the same terrible grief he felt after losing Amelia. Then, Devin reveals something important. If Legis repeats the words he said when Juvel's memories were sealed, they will come back. But their talk is suddenly cut off when Darius appears with Count Pyrex as if out of nowhere, catching both of them by surprise. In the audience area, Juvel grows anxious because her father still hasn't returned. What she doesn't know is that Legis is trapped by Darius. Annoyed, Darius demands to know where Devin is, saying he heard Legis talking to someone. He brags that he can use the same magic as the ring's owner and enjoys showing off that power. Ironically, Devin's own power has trapped him. Fed up, Legis glares at Darius and says he talks too much for someone who relies on the ring. That sets Darius off, and he says a disobedient slave like Legis needs to be taught a lesson. Before he can go on, Legis suddenly puts a dagger to Darius's throat and warns him. He says if Darius uses the ring, Legis will die at once. Darius first denies their lives are linked, but Legis keeps pressing the threat, and Darius starts to look uneasy. Fafnir, bound to Darius by contract, isn't loyal to him. He wants to break free of the ring and destroy the Empire. So in the bigger picture, Fafnir can't let Legis die. Darius thinks Legis is just bluffing out of desperation, but Legis says death would be freedom for him. Then Juvel suddenly appears. She arrives right as Legis says he'll end the contract. Darius snaps, swearing he won't let that happen. Panicked, Juvel calls out to Legis, and the mana in her necklace breaks the barrier Darius set up. At the same time, Max grows uneasy in the forest. They've gone deep into the woods, but still haven't seen a single monster. Realizing something is wrong, he quickly orders everyone to turn back. Years ago, when Amelia made Juvel's necklace, she said that if Juvel had powers like hers, they would awaken during her coming-of-age ceremony. As Juvel tries to stop everything, Ledges is distracted for a moment, and Darius uses that opening to activate the ring and turn Ledges into a monster. Ledges fights the change with everything he has, even hurting himself to resist it. Juvel watches in horror, terrified for her father. Even then, Ledges keeps resisting because he doesn't want Juvel to see him like that. But the Emperor's cruel orders finally overpower him through the ring. Once Ledges falls under the Emperor's control, the command comes down to kill Juvel. Fear grips Juvel, and the memories from her dreams start rushing back. As Ledges moves toward her under the ring's control, Devon steps in with protective magic. Seeing that Ledges' dagger has no sword aura, Devon realizes he's using all his strength just to fight the ring. Unable to stand there and do nothing, Juvel tearfully calls out to him. She reminds him of what he once told her, that she was a priceless treasure to both him and her mother. Begging him not to give in to the ring, Juvel makes Ledges stop, and he struggles to pull his broken mind back together. Seeing the chance, Devon tells Juvel to run. He says Ledges never wanted her to see him in this state. Juvel is torn between staying with her father and escaping the danger, but Devon keeps pushing, so she finally leaves, worried sick. As they run back toward the crowd, Juvel asks Devon if her father has been controlled by the Emperor this whole time. Devon begs her not to hate Ledges, saying this was a sacrifice he chose for everyone else. Before they part, Devon tells Juvel her lost memories will return soon. Back in the stands, Beatrice anxiously searches for Juvel. When she finally sees her, she feels a rush of relief. But that relief turns to worry when she notices Juvel is soaked. She quickly asks what happened. A moment later, Max rushes over, clearly worried. Juvel's sudden plea shocks him, and his mind starts racing. Before anyone can respond, a monster charges at them. Juvel and Beatrice freeze in fear. In an instant, Juvel shoves Beatrice out of the way. It's the last thing she wants, but she chooses to put herself at risk to save the others. Max immediately sprints toward her, desperate to help. At that moment, Juvel truly thinks this could be the end. But as Beatrice reaches out toward Juvel, a strange light bursts from inside her. For one brief second, Beatrice makes a silent wish. She begs for time to stop, even just for a moment. And somehow, time freezes. Because of that, the monster only catches Juvel's cloak. Everyone is horrified and starts running in panic. But Max reaches Juvel just in time. He pulls Juvel close and nearly cries, thinking he almost lost her, while she gently tells him she's okay. Through tears, Beatrice begs Juvel not to risk herself like that again. But as she speaks, the monster turns toward them. Victor jumps in front of Beatrice and blocks the attack. To their shock, the monster suddenly grows even stronger. In the middle of the chaos, Beatrice keeps thinking about what happened inside her. She starts to wonder if it was magic. Reacting fast, Max leaps in and drives his weapon into the monster's eye. That gives them an opening to run, and Juvel and Beatrice try to escape, but Juvel slips and falls hard. The monster rushes straight at her. Then Legis appears and takes it down. Even while forcing himself under control, with one eye red and the other blue, Legis apologizes for being late, saying Daddy's a little late. Relieved, Juvel runs to him. Legis says he's just glad she's safe. But then Fafnir takes over Legis again and turns him back into a monster. Juvel is horrified by what she sees. Then, unexpectedly, the Emperor walks over and praises Legis. At that moment, Legis manages to regain control. The Emperor acts like he only came because of the commotion, saying how lucky he is to see the Empire's hero Legis defeat the monster alone. Legis glares at him and says, any father would protect his daughter. It's a clear warning to Darius to stay away from Juvel. Seeing the monster evolve again, Darius thinks he's won. Dire wolves lose control near strong mana, and when they devour it, they evolve further. Since this beast changed right in front of Beatrice, Darius figures her hidden powers have awakened, just as Mikkel planned. With that, Darius starts planning to use Beatrice's mana to feed Fafnir's endless hunger, believing Legis won't be able to resist much longer. The Emperor then announces the winner of the competition and calls Max forward. Right as the Emperor is about to hand over the prize, Max removes his mask and reveals himself, stunning Darius. Staring straight at him, Max says it's been decades since Darius last saw his son's face, then asks why he looks so serious. The Emperor's plan was likely simple. Mikhail would kill the monster and win. Then his engagement to Beatrice would be announced during the ceremony. But Max showing up ruined Mikkel's part, and Yuval saving Beatrice threw off the rest. Once the monster attacked the nobles, the Emperor had to change plans. Max decides to use that change to his advantage. Then he turns to the crowd and shows his face, dropping a truth that shocks everyone. Even Mikhail, watching in secret, is stunned. Max addresses the crowd about the dire wolf, a beast that normally lives deep in the far forest. He points out that it appeared near the event less than an hour after things began, which could only happen if someone brought it there on purpose. Max vows to find whoever planned this attack. one that hurt both the woman he loves and his dear younger sister. Darius starts to look afraid as Max declares that anyone who hurts his loved ones will pay. Max is fully determined to take his father's throne and cast him down. Later, inside the carriage, Legis goes to Javel, who is still weak and shaken. Seeing her father, Javel clings tightly to him in relief. Legis apologizes for how badly he frightened her. Crying, Javel asks how long he has carried that burden by himself. She tells him she never wants him to suffer alone again and vows to protect him the way he protected her. Both of them cry, each wanting to keep the other safe. When Javel finally falls asleep from exhaustion, Legis lets her rest in the carriage. After closing the door, he sees Max already waiting. Legis asks if Max is truly ready to take the throne and become the next emperor, catching him off guard for a moment. Then Max firmly says he will rise as the empire's new heir and save its people. Having made up his mind, Legis says he is entrusting his precious daughter to Max, the future emperor. Their talk continues by the carriage. Legis says he's finally chosen this path because he fears the emperor may target Javel. Now that Javel knows the truth, he feels a little more at peace. He also explains what happens when the ring takes control of him. It forces him to obey the emperor, even if that means hurting Javel. Hearing this, Max is crushed that he never understood how much Legis was suffering. He even feels bitter that Legis kept carrying it alone, but then realizes it was all to protect Javel. That leaves Max deeply ashamed. When Max mentions that the emperor dies if the contractor dies, Javel, who has been hearing everything, remembers Legis threatening to kill himself in front of the emperor. She jolts awake and begs Legis not to sacrifice himself. Legis is startled by her sudden plea. Max agrees right away, saying Legis can't trade his life for the emperor's. They even joke about tying the emperor up, feeding him sugar water, and sewing his mouth shut so he can't speak. But Legis says he's thought about all of this every day, and escaping the contract won't be easy. If anything happens to Darius, Fafnir will take over Legis to stop it. The only way to break the contract without Legis dying is probably to change the ring's owner. But since only someone with imperial blood can own the ring, and Fafnir has to allow the transfer, it won't be easy. Legis explains that Fafnir was the first emperor's father, the evil dragon who once tried to destroy the empire. He's also an ancestor of the Ashet Royale line. What matters most is this. The ring answers to Fafnir, not the emperor. That means the next owner would have to be someone who wants to use Legis to ruin the empire. Now that Legis has opened up, it's clear he doesn't want to die, and Max becomes set on finding another way. At Hessen's residence, the emperor visits Mikhail to reward him for discovering Beatrice's magic. But Mikhail doesn't look happy. The emperor asks what he really wants, and Mikhail drops to one knee, saying he wants the Floyan family destroyed. The emperor is annoyed, seeing Mikhail's personal grudge as petty use of the imperial family. Even so, he admits they want the same thing and says Beatrice's power is strong enough to bring the Floyans down. At Salon Blooms, Freya is stunned to hear Max plans to propose to Yuvel on her birthday. She can barely believe he wants to do it in public. Max imagines the grandest proposal in the empire, with nobles everywhere cheering them on. Freya thinks the opposite will happen. People will just gossip behind their backs. Max keeps going. Sure, even the cold Legis will cry tears of joy. Freya warns him Legis might be furious instead. Max still pictures Juvel shyly accepting him, like a perfect ending. Freya, though, thinks Juvel might panic and shout his name. Max refuses to back down and even asks Freya to prepare Juvel's gift that day. Freya forces a smile, clearly worried. She then brings up the rumors spreading through noble society. Now that Juvel's so-called commoner lover is known to be the crown prince, her reputation has taken a hit. Freya says the gossip will get worse, with people claiming Legis is using Juvel's marriage to the crown prince to spark rebellion. Max is bothered by that, but he doesn't change his mind. He says the nobles' opinions don't matter. To him, the proposal is a way to show everyone Juvel is his, and keep anyone from hurting her again. Knowing she can't stop him, Freya says he should at least make it as grand and romantic as possible to improve his image. He needs to show the ladies that life under his rule won't be miserable. If he proposes in a way that makes every woman jealous, Freya says Juvel will surely say yes. Embarrassed, Max agrees. Then he suddenly asks Freya to investigate Fafnir, which shocks her since that's a forbidden subject in the Empire. Max says he wants to know why Fafnir tried to destroy the Empire and how he was sealed, and he wants every detail. Back at the Floyan house, Juvel is busy getting ready for her birthday party and is so focused she doesn't notice Legis bringing her food. He gently reminds her not to skip meals just because she's busy. Startled at first, Juvel quickly lights up and shows him everything she's been planning. Then Legis suggests a walk around the Floyan lands, thinking it might help clear her mind. Juvel happily agrees. The next day, Legis and Juvel get ready to leave with the Floyan knights escorting them. Right as they're about to get in the carriage, Max appears out of nowhere, acting hurt that Juvel planned to go without him. He insists on coming too, smiling brightly and saying he even warmed Legis's seat. Juvel is startled. and Legis is clearly annoyed. As Max moves closer to Javel and starts showing affection, she tries to hold him back. Seeing them get too close, Legis steps in and tells Max to let her go. Today is for family, not him. It almost feels like their usual clash is about to start again, but Max keeps smiling and refuses to leave. Legis smiles too, though it's clearly forced, and says no. Then Javel grabs Legis's arm and begs him to let Max come, saying she wants to show him where she grew up. Legis hesitates, but he finally gives in to his daughter's plea. Just as Max and Javel move to hug, Legis sharply reminds them there will be no public affection. Both of them reluctantly agree, but the second Legis looks away, Max sneaks a kiss onto Javel's cheek, catching her by surprise. At last, they reach the old country house, the former Floyan home. Inside, Max feels how warm the place is and understands why Legis once cared for it so much. He spots a childhood picture of Javel and can't get over how cute she was. Then he finds a photo of young Legis with his parents and is surprised by how serious Legis looked even back then. When Max sees a picture of Legis with his wife Amelia, he realizes Legis could smile so warmly when he was with the woman he loved. Later, Legis takes Javel to visit her mother's grave, their first time there together in a long while. He came to pay his respects to Amelia, silently apologizing for taking so long to bring Javel. When Max gets Legis alone, he asks if he truly loved his wife that much. Legis says he still does. Max then asks if he made the contract with Cersei's ring for Amelia's sake. Legis only says Max will learn soon enough. More than anything, he hopes Javel won't be hurt by the memories that return. At the palace, Beatrice has tea with the Empress, who starts insulting Javel and claims she chased Max just to become Empress. Beatrice immediately defends her friend. The Empress is furious that Beatrice sides with Javel instead of her. Hidden nearby, Victor watches everything. After learning the monster at the hunting event was sent by the Emperor, Victor realized Beatrice had been put in danger by her own father. Believing he was the only one in the palace who could protect her, he told Max he would do whatever it took to keep her safe. That's why he still guards her from the shadows. Then Beatrice suddenly asks about the baby in the Empress's womb, and when she plans to tell the Emperor, the Empress grows uneasy, avoids her eyes and says she'll tell him once the baby is stronger. Just then, the Emperor appears, startling the Empress. He tells Beatrice he needs to speak with her. As they leave, the Emperor briefly looks at the Empress's stomach, hinting he may have heard their conversation. Beatrice is shocked when they stop in front of the dungeon. She nervously asks why she's there, but the Emperor smirks and tells her not to worry. She isn't in danger. Victor, following in secret, can't go any farther and wonders what the Emperor is planning. Inside the dungeon, the Emperor calls for Fafnir, and a dark hand suddenly reaches toward Beatrice. It comments that her red hair makes her look more like him than Darius. Terrified, Beatrice screams and covers her ears. A horrible metallic shriek fills the room and makes her ears ring. The Emperor yanks her hands away and tells her not to cover them. He orders her to greet Fafnir, the founder of the Empire and its first emperor. At the sight of him, Beatrice is frozen with fear. Fafnir tells her not to be afraid, saying her magical talent came from him. He promises to teach her magic himself and reveal the hidden truth behind the Empire's founding, making her the greatest mage in the world. Then the Emperor adds that if she goes along with it, he'll hand the throne to her. Beatrice can hardly believe it. The seat her mother wanted so badly and her father never seemed willing to give up is now being offered to her, and she knows something is wrong. Back in her room, Beatrice reads a letter from Javel. Javel writes about getting ready for her birthday and says she wants Beatrice there. That makes Beatrice head out to find a special gift for her friend. While she's walking through town, a strong gust blows her hat away. To her surprise, Victor appears and catches it. He says it's a nice surprise running into her there. Later, in front of the secret auction house, Beatrice is surprised to find Victor there too. Victor quickly says he wasn't following her on purpose. He came on his lord's orders. Once the auction begins, the main item is revealed. A hidden imperial treasure. A tiara with protective magic worn by the first empress until her death. Beatrice instantly decides it's the perfect gift for Javel. Then Victor suddenly asks what happened between her and the Emperor in the dungeon the day before. He also reveals that the hunting competition incident was planned by the Emperor. Beatrice is completely shaken. Victor tells her everything he knows, including that the Emperor tried to kill her. Beatrice starts trembling as she realizes her own father really tried to take her life. As the tiara bidding nears the end, the price goes beyond the money Max gave Victor. With no other choice, Victor suggests they work together. Back at the Floyan estate, on the night before the party, Javel carefully checks every last detail and finds everything in perfect order. Legis comes over and tells her he's proud of her, which makes Javel beam. But then Javel suddenly feels like she's forgotten something. Marilyn brings up her first dance partner, and Javel realizes she still hasn't chosen one. Now she's stuck between Max and Legis. As night falls, Legis grows more anxious about the day Javel's memories return. Once that happens, she won't be able to hide her mana anymore. And after her recent collapse, he's afraid it could go out of control. So, to keep Javel safe, Legis orders Derek to have a doctor ready at the party tomorrow. On Juvel's birthday, the guests start arriving, and Juvel greets them with Legis at her side. Meanwhile, Max is clearly up to something. His people stay hidden in the bushes, quietly signaling each other. Frisha warns them that nothing can go wrong today. She's set on making the proposal work perfectly, then gives Max the signal once everything is ready. Seeing that, Max relaxes. Sure, his team can pull off the greatest proposal ever. Juvel warmly thanks everyone for coming to celebrate with her. Legis steps up and offers his hand, ready for Juvel's first dance. But she chooses Max instead. Max is thrilled, while Legis hides his hurt and accepts it. Poor dad. Someone even offers to dance with him instead. Juvel and Max happily share the dance. From the side, Legis watches them, and Derek asks if he's bothered. Legis admits it stings a little, but if Juvel is happy, that's enough for him. While they dance, Max quietly tells Juvel he wants to say something important in front of everyone afterward. Juvel touches his face and says she'd rather hear serious things in private. Realizing he has to change plans, Max asks her to meet him on the terrace after the party. Juvel pulls him closer and agrees with a bright smile. At the same time, Beatrice pulls Victor out of the hall, saying she needs to talk. On the terrace, she asks about the gift they bought for Juvel before. Then suddenly, fireworks light up the sky beside them with messages of eternal love. The guests immediately start congratulating them, leaving Beatrice red-faced and stunned. She asks Victor if he was trying to propose to her. Just as embarrassed, he shoots back that she was the one who dragged him outside. Now back to Legis. Juvel asks him to dance, catching him off guard while he drinks alone. She says the first dance is supposed to be a daughter's last dance with her family, and she doesn't want that. Instead, she asks him to dance with her until the party ends. That leaves Legis relieved and thankful that Juvel still cares so much. As they dance, Juvel warns him not to do anything strange while she's away. Legis pauses, softens, and promises he won't. Beatrice then walks up to Max, unhappy, and demands to know what he was planning. As she starts asking if he meant to propose to Juvel, Max presses a finger to her lips to stop her. Looking dead serious, he says no sane person would propose in public. Important things should be said in private. Then he changes the subject and asks about what happened in the dungeon. Eventually, the party comes to an end, and after the guests leave, Juvel quickly goes to find Max. Earlier, he'd hinted he needed to tell her something important, and he's been waiting for her. When Juvel sees how nervous he looks, she smiles. The same man who led everyone so confidently before now seems shy around her. Fidgeting, Max walks up with a gift box in his hands. He opens it and takes out a tiara, saying an ancient king made it by pouring half his mana into it to protect the woman he loved. Max gently sets the tiara on Juvel's head and nervously adds that the king gave half his heart to his wife. Then he drops to one knee and says that just as the sun fills half the day, he wants Juvel by his side, asking if she'll be the Empire's moon, his other half forever, and marry him. Seeing how nervous and sincere he is, Juvel understands how deeply he wants her, so she nods and says yes. Max jumps up and wraps her in a tight hug, thanking her and telling her he loves her. Flustered, Juvel says she feels the same, and Max hugs her even tighter. Juvel is full of joy, but part of her wonders if she's really allowed to be this happy, praised by others, loved by her father and friends, and standing with the person she loves. But then, all of a sudden, Juvel collapses, and Max is horrified. He catches her before she hits the floor and tries to wake her, just as Legis arrives, deeply worried. Seeing Juvel unconscious, Legis freezes. The moment he feared has finally come. After Juvel is laid on the bed, Max anxiously asks what's wrong, and Legis explains that magicians can pass out when they lose control of their mana. Max doesn't understand, so Legis says he'll explain later and assures him Juvel is only sleeping while her sealed memories return. Legis feels torn, because he never wanted those memories to come back. He hated Amelia's death and hated how he was controlled, so he never wanted Juvel to carry that pain. Yet he knows she's stronger than he is. He leans close to Juvel and repeats the words he told her when her memories were sealed. He says he'll lock away her painful memories, and when she wakes, he won't stay as close or remain by her side as much. He's doing it to protect her, but no matter what, he'll love her forever. As he finishes, tears run down Juvel's face, and mana begins pouring from her body. When Juvel opens her eyes, she's shocked to see herself as a child. Then her mother's voice calls to her, and seeing Amelia alive in front of her, Juvel can barely believe it. Amelia happily gives her the flower wreath she made for her. Realizing she's inside a lost memory, Juvel bursts into tears. Legis, just back from work, rushes over to comfort her. As both her parents care for her, Juvel wonders how she ever forgot this precious moment. But then the memory changes, and Juvel is standing in a hallway, hearing her parents argue. Legis begs Amelia to run away to another country under a false name, believing that's the only way to save her. Amelia is upset and strongly refuses. Even as Legis begs her to understand, she doesn't back down. Desperate to protect her, Legis tries to calm Amelia and kisses her gently. He tells her how much he loves her, and admits he's terrified the Emperor will order him to hurt her and steal her mana. Helpless, Legis opens up, and Amelia, now calmer, promises to stay with him to the end and make sure he never carries the blame, no matter what happens. When Amelia learned Legis made that contract with the Emperor right after finding out she was pregnant with Juvel, she understood how deeply he loved them. Watching it all, Juvel finally understands the truth. Legis made the contract to protect both her and her mother. The memory shifts again. Her mother tells her to hide in a wardrobe and stay silent, warning her not to let the monster find her. Juvel cries that her father isn't a monster, but Amelia firmly says the monster is not her father. Then Amelia seals the wardrobe with magic so no one outside can hear Juvel, hoping to keep her safe. The tension rises as a Floyan knight tells Amelia to run because Legis, under the ring's control, is coming. Without hesitation, Legis, controlled by Fafnir, smashes through the door and orders the Emperor's men to kill everyone in the house. Juvel realizes this is the day her mother died, but she can't change a thing because it's only a memory. Amelia watches her knights fall and feels utterly helpless. When she faces Legis, he attacks. She tries to cast a spell, but his assault overwhelms her. Fafnir, controlling Legis, reaches for Amelia's throat. As he lifts his sword, Amelia, through tears, calls Legis by name. She touches his face and reminds him she's the one he wanted to protect. She begs him to look into the eyes he once called beautiful and says the Legis she knows truly loves her. None of this is his fault. Legis hesitates, nearly coming back to himself, tears filling his eyes. Amelia believes in him and urges him not to give in, declaring her love for him. Inside, Legis fights to take back control, but an Emperor's knight stabs Amelia from behind before she can defend herself. Juvel sees the tragedy unfold and sobs uncontrollably. As Amelia falls, blood spreading beneath her, Legis comes back to his senses. Despair crashes over him. His aura erupts, and he screams his wife's name. In that instant, Legis changes, his presence turning terrifying as he grabs his sword and slaughters everyone responsible in pure rage. Then he returns to his dying wife, begging forgiveness. With her last strength, Amelia tells Legis this was her own choice, and he must not blame himself. She also speaks to Juvel, still hidden in the wardrobe, telling her to treat anything painful or sad like a story in a book. Before her final breath, she says she loves both Legis and Juvel. Juvel wakes up with tears still pouring down her face. Max, beside her, quickly asks if she's okay. Heavy with grief, Legis realizes Juvel remembers everything now. As he turns to leave, unable to face her pain, Juvel calls out to him through her tears. She reminds him that he promised to stay by her side no matter what. Legis apologizes and admits he asked Devon to seal her memories because he didn't have the courage to tell her the painful truth. He's drowning in regret and grief, and his tears won't stop. Seeing how long Legis has suffered under guilt and regret, Juvel feels her heart ache for him. She tries to comfort him by remembering what her mother said before hiding her in the wardrobe. Amelia told her that if Legis ever went through hard times, she should remind him that he looks best when he smiles. It was something Amelia had told him since he was a little boy. So Juvel asks Legis to smile and stop crying. After crying together, they sit down for tea, while Max still worries about Juvel. Wanting answers, he asks Legis how he broke free from the Emperor's control. Legis says it was probably because of the mana Amelia poured into the protective spell right before she died. By resisting the Emperor with his own will, Legis became an Ascended. He explains that when a swordsman goes beyond human limits, they stop aging. So Legis has barely aged since Amelia died. Knowing Amelia was the Empire's last magician, Max realizes Juvelian should have magic too, and Legis confirms it. Juvel is shocked, since Legis had sealed both her memories and her magic. Legis then explains that Juvel used that magic to save him during the hunting competition. But Juvel still doesn't understand, because she thought this world was just a storybook. Legis guesses Amelia cast a spell on her to make her see it that way. Max asks why Legis hid all this for so long, saying he would have helped if he'd known. With a bitter look, Legis points out that Max has changed a lot. Back then, he didn't care about Juvel, ignored advice, and did whatever he wanted. Legis adds that he was surrounded by enemies and planned to carry everything alone, then die after arranging Juvel's marriage. But that failed. Both Max and Juvel are stunned by what he says. Then Legis reveals this is actually his second life. That shocking truth leaves Max and Juvel speechless as they try to understand him. Legis keeps apologizing and admits that in his first life, Juvel died because of him, so he risked everything to start over. Back when Juvel was falsely accused of poisoning the princess, Legis never once doubted her innocence. He knew she could never do it, but the situation was already out of control. People already suspected Juvel, and no one cared about finding the real criminal. It looked like the Emperor would question Juvel himself and accuse her of trying to kill the imperial family. Legis couldn't let that happen, because if her life was threatened, her magic might awaken and expose her to the Emperor. So he decided to hide Juvel somewhere magic couldn't be used. where she'd stay safe until he could save her and until the Emperor's watch over her was gone. He gave Juvel a dagger so she could defend herself, but she sadly misunderstood and thought he meant for her to kill herself. After hiding Juvel in the Chamber of Shadows, Legis immediately went to find Max. At that time, Max was still a hard-to-handle tyrant. Legis offered to help with Max's plans if Max would save Juvel and keep her safe. Max agreed, calling it a trade. Juvel's life for his father's. The wait after Max left felt endless to Legis. Then Victor rushed in, panicked, and told him to come at once. What Legis found broke him. His beloved daughter was lying there, dead. Max apologized and said he tried to stop her, but Juvel took her own life the moment he arrived. Legis was crushed, blaming himself and begging her forgiveness, but nothing could bring Juvel back. He held her body for what felt like forever, completely helpless. As she grew cold, Legis Adrefloyan was gone too. He returned to the hall and, driven mad with grief, attacked everyone there. He even wounded the Emperor when he tried to call on Fafnir to stop him. Legis didn't care if he lived anymore. He couldn't stand a world without his daughter. In the end, he killed the Emperor himself. Right before his own death, Legis took out a pendant and desperately wished to save Juvel. It was a treasured Floyan heirloom passed down for generations. Legis had received it from his father as a child. The Empire's guardian god had given it to the Floyan family for protecting the Empire. The pendant could save the life of a true Floyan once at death, but the price was huge. Legis used it in his final moment to save Juvel, giving up everything because she meant more to him than anything else. After hearing all of this, Max burns with anger and holds even tighter to his plan to face the Emperor. But Juvel is still worried, because they can't let Legis die. Even so, Max says they do have a way out, and it's already on the way. A nervous Beatrice arrives and asks if Juvel is okay. Then Legis calls Max over and bluntly asks if his plan is to use the princess. Max explains that Beatrice awakened her hidden power during the hunting competition, and the Emperor approached her through Fafnir to teach her magic. Hearing that, Legis gets angry and warns that underestimating them is dangerous. He says the Emperor and Fafnir are only pretending. They really want to steal Beatrice's mana. Legis flatly refuses to put the princess in danger. Just then, Beatrice steps in, catching both Max and Legis off guard, and says she deserves to be part of this talk. So the four of them sit down and speak honestly. Max lays out his idea. Beatrice should become the ring's new master. Legis explains that Fafnir killed every magician in the Empire and drained their mana to free himself from the ring. Now that no magicians are left, Legis says Beatrice is the target Fafnir has been waiting for. He again refuses the plan, unwilling to risk Beatrice's life just to save his own. Juvel agrees. She doesn't want Beatrice endangered either. Even while Max and Beatrice explain the plan in detail, Legis refuses to budge. Beatrice admits she's scared. She doesn't want Legis to die, but she also refuses to be used as a sacrifice. Still, she believes their plan can work. Max is just as sure of it. Watching Max and Beatrice stand firm to protect Legis, Juvel also hardens her resolve to become stronger and save her father herself. Suddenly, an Emperor's knight demands entry and delivers the Emperor's order. Legis and Max must come to the palace at once. If they refuse, they'll be dragged there by force. Juvel watches anxiously from behind, and Legis notices. He reassures her that everything will be fine and promises they'll return soon. So Max and Legis go with them. In the carriage, Max realizes their guard is Nicola Marone. He brings up Nicola's absence during the Reagan War and his role in supplying weapons, but Nicola tries to dodge the question. Max presses harder, saying he knows they share profits with the Emperor in return for avoiding service and keeping a weapon monopoly. Then he threatens to expose it all at the hearing in front of every noble. Cornered, Nicola gives in and asks what Max wants. Max asks who arranged the noble hearing. At the Grand Palace, the nobles gather for Max and Legis's trial for treason against the Emperor. There they learn it was Marcus Hessen who set it up. Marcus Hessen opens by accusing Max of hiding who he was, just to collect information and overthrow the Emperor. Max calmly replies that wearing a helmet is just a personal habit. When asked about Juvel, Max says she thought he was a common mercenary before he could tell her the truth. Marcus Hessen can't believe anyone would mistake Max for a commoner. In reply, Max says Mikhail, Marcus Hessen's own son, made that exact mistake. Then Max reveals everything Mikhail did to him and Juvel, leaving Marcus Hessen trembling and speechless. Seeing this, Duke Elios turns from Max to Legis and asks why he let Max and Juvel stay together after all the bad blood between him and Max. Legis firmly says he never approved of their relationship. Clearly troubled, he talks about how hard he tried to keep his daughter away from the prince. But Juvel's feelings for him were stronger than Legis expected. He says no parent can fully beat their child's wishes, so all he can do is watch the prince closely, afraid he'll use her feelings and hurt her. He looks like a grieving father who feels some evil thing has stolen his daughter away. Watching Legis's act, Max can't tell if he's being honest or just performing. but the nobles keep pressing Legis, asking why he drove away Juvel's former suitor. Legis boldly says no man in the Empire is good enough for his daughter, and declares he'll never let Juvel marry. Max is stunned by how far Legis goes, barely believing this side of him. He then argues that they're trying to twist weak circumstantial evidence into treason, and says insulting him without proof is also an insult to the imperial family. In the end, Max and Legis return home together. In the carriage, Max says the nobles want to expose his relationship with Juvel so they can paint both him and Legis as part of an anti-emperor faction. He's troubled that so many nobles side with the emperor, but Legis reminds him the commoners think differently and support Max, the hero of the Reagan War. Legis says they need to win public opinion through the commoners before the empire's founding anniversary. Back at the Floyan estate, an unexpected visitor comes to see Juvel. The visitor is Sir Frederick Elios, Duke Elios's oldest son and one of the most respected young nobles in the empire. Juvel is immediately curious why someone like him came to see her. Frederick soon explains that his family was told to collect proof that the Floyans and the Crown Prince are plotting treason, but his real goal is to find who sent the monster to the last hunting event, because he's sure someone powerful was behind it. Hearing that, Juvel remembers Max's side had secretly asked the Elios family to investigate and prove the Emperor was involved. Since Duke Elios led the attack on Legis and Max at the hearing, Juvel wonders if Frederick is really here to test her, so she asks why he would tell her something this dangerous. Frederick says it's because he truly respects Legis, and because Max doesn't seem nearly as crazy as the rumors claim. That catches Juvel so off guard she spits out her drink. Frederick adds that he once overheard a private talk between Legis and Max, and if Legis trusts Max, then he believes he should too. He rises, hands Juvel a handkerchief, and says the Elios family is ready to support the Floyans. Then he leans in and says it has to stay between them. Right then, Max walks in and instantly bristles at seeing another man so close to Juvel. He shoves Frederick away and says everyone in the Empire should already know Juvel is with him. Max demands to know what Frederick wants, and Frederick calmly says he came for Legis, but greeted Juvel while waiting and now asks to take his leave. After that, Max gives Juvel a special pair of shoes, one of a kind in the Empire. Once she tries them on, she asks what he thinks. Max is stunned by how pretty she looks, and tells her the shoes suit her perfectly, but he still asks how she feels about Frederick. Juvel says she likes him well enough. He's handsome, well-liked, and his support could help them. That only makes Max more irritated as he thinks about other blonde, good-looking men like Rowain and Mikhail. Just then, Legis shows up looking for Max. Juvel greets her father while Max keeps grumbling about fair-haired men and says dark hair is better. Out of nowhere, Legis tells him to stop being foolish and hands him a bag. Inside is a blonde wig, and Max just stares at it in disbelief. When he puts it on, Juvel is surprised by how good he looks with blonde hair. Legis says tonight is their chance, and they need to win the public to their side. So Max and Legis head out in disguise. Legis even uses the name Leo, showing he's much better at acting than expected. He brings Max to an underground bar, and Max starts wondering if Legis has been there before from how easily he finds his way around. Inside, Max looks around and spots 3 men about to start a gambling game. He says he wants in. The men hesitate at first, thinking Max and Legis are just kids messing around. But when Legis drops a bag of money on the table and claims he's 26 with a child, despite actually being 39, they let them join and apologize for judging them too fast. Max is amazed that Legis isn't just a sword master, but also a master liar. Max wins the game, but one of the men accuses him of cheating. Max says he only played the way he was taught and points at Legis as the one who taught him. The man gets angry and says he doesn't believe that. Then Legis lowers his hood and asks if the man remembers his face, reminding him that he once bought him drinks while he drunkenly cursed the Emperor. The man is stunned. Max notes that he seems to hold a lot of hate for the Emperor, and the other 2 openly agree. They say the Emperor used them like tools and threw them away when he was done. They risked their lives in war and never got the reward they were promised. One mercenary, now missing a leg, says he lost it for nothing. Still, he remembers one good thing after that. The Crown Prince visited him every day and helped get him treatment. To them, the Crown Prince was the only one who truly helped a lowly mercenary recover. Even so, they assume the prince probably doesn't remember them. Max shocks them by saying he remembers everything they said during the war. Then he says their names one after another, leaving them speechless. Max removes the wig and reveals himself as the Crown Prince. The mercenaries immediately bow. Max tells them to stand and apologizes for coming too late. He promises to give them what his father never did. His words hit them hard. Then Max asks them to stand with him so he can build an empire where no one else is cast aside like they were. Back in her room, Juvel is reading when she hears faint voices nearby. She steps out and tells the knights guarding her door. Geraldine comes over and says he hears footsteps too. He tells Juvel to stay in the parlor where they can protect her. She agrees, but first slips back into her room to grab some books. While gathering them, Juvel is startled by Beatrice suddenly appearing. Beatrice says the Emperor has people watching her, so she used magic to come see Juvel. Juvel then tells Geraldine she's tired and wants to rest in her room. Seeing Beatrice use magic so easily, Juvel admits that even after reading so many books, she still can't cast any magic. Beatrice shares what Fafnir told her. Magic doesn't come from books alone. It needs imagination, a clear picture in your mind, and sharp focus. To show her, Beatrice fills an empty cup with black tea, and Juvel is amazed. Juvel tries it herself, but nothing happens, and she gets frustrated. Beatrice tells her not to copy what she did, just focus on what she wants most. Juvel tries again, and suddenly fireworks explode across the sky. When Legis sees them, he realizes Juvel is searching for him the way Amelia once did. Juvel is thrilled she finally used magic, saying she only wanted to find Legis and Max. Beatrice is happy for her too, but Juvel can't stop the fireworks, and they keep going for 20 minutes. Afterward, Juvel asks Beatrice to teach her a little magic every day like this. But Beatrice turns away and reveals why she really came, to say goodbye, because they won't see each other for a while. Juvel is stunned and asks what she means. Beatrice hardens her expression and says that from now on, they are no longer friends. Later, at the Ashed Imperial Palace, the engagement ceremony between the princess and Mikael begins. Watching it, Juvel feels heartbroken that Beatrice has to go this far for her father's plan. The night before, when Beatrice visited, she explained that Fafnir told her to pretend to side with the Emperor so no one would suspect her. She also planned to offer Fafnir her mana and gain his trust to claim the ring. Juvel begged her not to risk so much and warned that Fafnir might trick her. But Beatrice said if Juvel couldn't be happy, neither could she, and she was doing this for herself too. She also gave Juvel a bracelet filled with half her mana and said it would stop the worst outcome, asking Juvel to trust her. Now Max tells Juvel their side is ready, and all they can do is wait. Seeing how worried she is, Max reassures her that Beatrice will be fine. He points out that the actual wedding is set for the Empire's founding day, the same day they plan to tear down the current Empire, so it will never happen. In other words, the engagement is just bait to make the Emperor think his plan is working. Even so, Juvel still fears they could fail, and that Fafnir may deceive Beatrice. When she tries to contact Beatrice, Max stops her, warning that while Beatrice and Fafnir are sharing mana, he may be able to hear and see whatever she does. Juvel finally understands why Beatrice said they couldn't be friends anymore. Then she remembers the bracelet Beatrice gave her, filled with Beatrice's mana. Juvel uses magic to see what Beatrice is doing right now. In that vision, she sees Fafnir, the evil being controlling her father. The moment Fafnir looks her way, a shock tears through Juvel, and she collapses. Still shaken, she tells Max she saw their enemy, the true form of Fafnir, the one they must face now. Since it's hard to explain in words, Juvel uses magic to let Max see the memory for himself. In the vision, Fafnir is talking with Beatrice. Beatrice tells him she hates Darius and wants revenge on her father. Then she asks why he wants mana, if it's to escape the basement. Fafnir says his power has weakened, so he can't move freely and needs mana to recover his freedom. Beatrice presses him to tell her more if he wants her trust and her power. So Fafnir starts talking about how his son betrayed him, trying to kill him and steal his heart to gain eternal life. His rage is so intense that his tears turn to lava, and that fire ended up swallowing the Empire, even though he never meant to destroy it. In the end, his son's greed ruined both him and the Empire. Beatrice says she understands. She doesn't just hate her father. She resents the whole world that forced her into becoming a princess she never wanted to be. She says she wants to free Fafnir from the ring, but she isn't sure how to break a seal made by a god. Fafnir calms Beatrice, saying she may not realize it, but strong mana is already wrapped around her. He explains that magicians often use mana without knowing it to protect the people they care about. Then he recognizes that mana. It belongs to Jewel. Fafnir says that if Beatrice has Jewel's mana, they'll finally have enough strength to break Cersei's seal. Beatrice offers a deal. Make her the new owner of the ring so she can get revenge on her father, and in return she'll draw Jewel's mana out for him. But Fafnir answers in an old language neither Juvel nor Max understands. As they try to figure out what he meant, Legis steps in from behind and translates. Fafnir agrees, if Beatrice can do it, because Jewel's mana is the same as Goddess Cersei's. His sudden arrival shocks them, and Legis quickly realizes they've accepted Beatrice's plan to trick Fafnir and take the ring. Thinking her father will object, Jewel asks if he's going to stop her. Instead, Legis tells her to do it, knowing she wouldn't listen even if he refused. That answer stuns both Max and Jewel. But then Max and Legis suddenly notice a servant nearby, clearly listening in. They switch subjects at once and suggest a horseback ride for some fresh air. While riding, Legis tells Jewel he found that servant suspicious, so they need to stay careful. He warns her not to eat anything that servant prepares and says she should only drink tea when he's with her. Max jumps in and says he'll come see her every day. Legis agrees that's best, since he can now use Max as Jewel's personal guard. Once they reach a spot overlooking the whole empire, Legis starts explaining how he ended up in a contract with the Emperor, and why magicians vanished back then. 22 years earlier, Darius took the imperial throne. At 17, Legis became a knight in the Central Army, and he was thrilled because he was proud to follow his family line and serve the empire. But his father had always hated his dream of becoming an imperial knight. Back then, Legis thought his father just believed he wasn't good enough, so he decided to prove himself and win his approval. When Darius offered Legis a place as his personal knight, his father, Duke Leon Floyan, politely refused, saying Legis wasn't ready yet. Leon stayed as stern and quiet as ever, but then Legis turned and saw blood running from his father's hand. Later, he learned that blood was tied to citizens who had been disappearing all across the empire. His father, the former duke, had served the imperial family for 20 years and was known as a careful, emotionless man. So when Legis saw him show real hatred toward the new emperor, he couldn't ignore it. He went to his father and asked about the blood on his hand. After a long silence, Legis's father finally revealed the truth. Emperor Darius had ordered the Central Knights to capture every magician, drain their mana, and kill them. Fearing for Emilia, Legis decided to save her. He secretly removed Emilia's name from the Floyan list of magicians in his father's study, and luckily the Emperor's people never noticed. Time passed, and when Legis and Emilia became adults, he proposed and confessed how deeply he loved her. Both of them expected Legis's father to oppose it, but Legis didn't back down. To his surprise, his father allowed the marriage. As he walked away, he muttered something Legis couldn't understand. Not long after the wedding, war broke out with Tegeria, and Legis lost even more. His father died in battle, and his mother soon passed away from grief. With the Emperor fleeing the palace and the knights losing heart, Legis pulled the Central Knights together, saying there were still people they had to protect, and they would win. He had no time to mourn his parents. In the end, they won the war. When Legis came home, he was welcomed by Emilia, who was pregnant. She told him the name she had chosen for their child, Juvelian. The name hit Legis like a shock. He remembered his father's strange words about protecting Juvelian, even before she had been born. Later, while going through the things left in his father's study, Legis found his father's diary. Inside, he read a terrible confession. His father called himself an unforgivable sinner who had yielded to the Emperor's threats and failed to stop the deaths of countless magicians. In the diary, Legis's father wrote that, full of regret, before a statue of the goddess Circe, he had nearly taken his own life when he saw a vision. In it, a young girl was crying for her dead father, and that father was his own son. Then someone spoke the girl's name, Juvelian. She had overwhelming mana, the first magician ever born in the Floyan line. That truth left Legis shaken. The diary also revealed more. His father knew Legis had removed Emilia's name from the magician list. He chose to ignore that huge mistake because he hoped Legis could still be happy with the woman he loved. After seeing that young magician, he believed Juvelian would inherit the goddess's power and prayed Legis would endure to the end. Right after learning all this, Legis was summoned by the Emperor. The Emperor ordered him to become leader of the Central Knights. Legis tried to refuse, but the Emperor cut him off and ordered him to swear on Circe's ring. Then Darius threatened him, saying he knew Emilia was a magician. He promised that if Legis made the contract, nothing would happen to her. Darius forced him to agree on the spot to protect his wife and unborn child. After telling Max and Juvel all this, Legis adds that Fafnir needs more than human mana to escape the ring. Jewel immediately understands. Fafnir will do anything to take her mana. In the dungeon, Fafnir pulls Jewel's mana out of Beatrice. But when Beatrice brings up becoming the ring's mistress, Fafnir puts it off, saying the mana she brought is so weak it can't even drive Legis mad, much less free him. Even so, he admits she's starting to look like a better owner for the ring, especially after saying she wants to help destroy the Empire. Beatrice then says she wants to be named the ring's mistress on the Empire's founding day, in front of everyone, where she plans to use its power to wipe everything out. Fafnir likes her resolve, but says she must meet one condition first. The next day, Max meets the Emperor, his father, to report the monster attack at the hunting contest. Max reveals that the day before the event, the Hessen family paid a large amount to a famous merchant to capture one specific monster, the dire wolf. Since a normal merchant couldn't catch something that dangerous, the merchant was just a cover while Hessen knights did the hunting. Darius snaps, asking what Max is trying to say. Max calmly points out the real issue. The monster meant for the hunt appeared in the nobles' stands instead, injuring many of them. He then accuses Darius, the man behind the Hessen family and Beatrice's engagement, of knowing this would happen. That makes Darius show clear worry and anger, even as he tries to deny everything. Still calm, Max says the merchant is now under his protection so no one can silence him. Darius finally explodes, shouting that even if the Hessen family released the monster, it wouldn't matter. The greedy nobles still wouldn't back Max. Max answers that the nobles may be selfish, but they won't accept an emperor who uses monsters to attack people. He adds that Darius even risked his own daughter's life to awaken her as a magician and killed countless innocent people to steal their mana. Darius insists Max will never defeat him and reveals he has a hidden weapon that could kill Max even now. He even hints that Legis could be blamed for the Emperor's crimes. Then, Legis suddenly enters, and Max immediately asks if he heard everything, if the Emperor had been threatening him this whole time. Legis says he must obey the Emperor's orders, whether given as commands or threats, unless Darius is the ring's master, which makes Darius go pale. Legis then says Fafnir is no longer in the ring. He should be with the princess. He orders the knights to arrest the stunned Darius at once. As they seize him, Darius tries to call for Fafnir, but nothing happens. Max quickly pulls the ring off Darius's finger. Then he announces that Darius is under arrest for trying to assassinate the princess during the hunting contest, for harming nobles, and for kidnapping, illegal imprisonment, and murdering commoners. He adds that Darius will stay locked up until trial, so no evidence can be tampered with. When Darius shouts that he's a member of the imperial family, Max reminds him that he is too, and they have every right to put Darius on trial, especially in a nation founded through a father's execution. Legis orders the knights to take Darius to the Chamber of Shadows. As Max holds Cersei's ring, Legis starts feeling that something is wrong, and suspects the ring may be fake. At the same time, Fafnir makes Beatrice an offer. He'll accept her as the ring's owner if she kills Juvel. He shows her the ring and says Darius would have lost it sooner or later anyway. Beatrice sees what he's after and plays along, saying she can't get close to Juvel while Legis and Max are guarding her. She says that would change if she could control Legis. Then Beatrice boldly says that if Fafnir wants Juvel dead and wants to escape the ring, he has to give her ownership first. Back at the Floyan residence, Geraldine tells Juvel the Emperor's trial will be held on the Empire's founding day. Juvel remembers that in her past life, Beatrice drank poison that day and collapsed. Luckily, Juvel already warned her not to eat or drink anything during the celebration. Seeing Juvel's worried face, Geraldine assures her the plan is still on track and tells her not to stress. Even so, Juvel can only pray nothing goes wrong. She still can't shake her fear, especially when it comes to trusting Fafnir. Juvel also starts to think Max and Legis are hiding something from her. Though she feels bad about sneaking into Legis's study, her worry wins out. Looking for answers, she finds a letter Max sent to Legis. In it, Max asks him to decode Cersei's prophecy. While she investigates, Selly, Legis's pet bird, suddenly flies in with a letter in its beak. When the bird notices Juvel is scared, it quickly flies off again and accidentally drops the letter onto her head. Juvel gives in to her curiosity and reads it. It's from Legis to Freya, telling her to remove Juvel from the guest list for the founding celebration. Meanwhile, at Salon Blooms, Legis meets with Max and hands over the translated prophecy Max asked for. As Max reads it, he's stunned. The prophecy says Fafnir will tempt the children of Ashe to free himself from the ring and warns them not to fall for him. It also says the goddess may send a child who resembles her the most to seal Fafnir again if the Empire is in danger. But that child could die after using up all her mana. Max is furious. He can't accept that Cersei's answer seems to require a sacrifice, and it's clear he and Legis are set on stopping Fafnir without letting Juvel pay the price. What they don't know is that Juvel, hidden with invisibility magic, hears everything. When Legis says he's ready to risk his own life and that Max should live happily with Juvel, Juvel breaks down in tears. Unable to grant Legis's wish this time, she reappears back at the Floyan house in front of the knights and begs them through tears to help her. Fighting back sobs, Juvel tells the knights what she learned and pleads for their help sneaking into the founding celebration. But Geraldine gives a painful answer. He can't help because it's a direct order from the Duke, and protecting her comes first. The other knights firmly agree and tell Juvel that with the Duke and the Empire's strongest knights together, the plan will work. Juvel leaves in tears, frustrated and scared. She now knows Fafnir is far more dangerous than they thought, and decides she'll have to act on her own to save everyone. Meanwhile, in her room, Isabel burns with anger over what happened with the Emperor and blames Mikhail in part. Mikhail then reveals the plan he kept hidden from her. He shows her a message from the Emperor. It orders her to kill the princess herself and lays out the whole scheme. All Isabel has to do is give Beatrice a poisoned drink on the day of the celebration. On the founding day, with Darius tied to a chair and gagged, Max opens the ceremony, declaring this day will change the Empire's history forever. From her seat, Isabel asks Beatrice if she truly believes Darius was behind the assassination attempt. Beatrice answers without hesitation that if Juvel hadn't saved her that day, she would have died. Isabel then calls for a servant to bring a drink and offers it to Beatrice. When Beatrice accepts right away, Isabel remarks on how trusting she is, even after siding with the Crown Prince against her and the Emperor. She admits she doesn't trust Beatrice at all, pointing out that Beatrice has ignored orders before. Then Isabel suddenly takes the glass back. asks Beatrice to promise she'll survive, and drinks it herself with a helpless look in her eyes. At the same time, Mikhail steps forward to object, claiming Max framed the emperor so he could take the throne. He says he has proof Max tortured Hessen knights and merchants for information. Then Isabel walks up and tells Mikhail to be quiet. In her poisoned, dying state, she declares the emperor is guilty, and says she herself is the proof. Isabel reveals Darius planned the attack at the hunting event and another one for today. She also exposes him as the one behind the disappearances of many innocent magicians. She curses him for trying to kill his own daughter and hopes he rots in hell. Legis immediately orders the knights to arrest Marquis Hessen and Mikhail, but then Fafnir appears, and Max tells everyone to follow the central knights and evacuate at once. As the crowd rushes out, Mikhail tries to run, but Yuvel catches him. The knights quickly pin him down, ending his escape. Darius then orders Fafnir to use Legis to kill them all. Fafnir instantly takes control of Legis and turns him against Beatrice. Max jumps in to protect her from Legis's attacks. After dodging several blows, Max spots an opening in Legis's movements and strikes back. But Legis quickly regains his balance and attacks Max again while Max keeps shielding Beatrice. Just then, Juvel appears with her magic, blocking Legis's attack. For a brief moment, Legis regains himself and warns Juvel she shouldn't be there. But Juvel doesn't hesitate. She rushes at Fafnir and with her magic snatches Circe's ring from him. Because this isn't Fafnir's real body, Max's attacks can't truly hurt him. Juvel tells her father she's upset he and Max tried to handle something this dangerous without her. She explains that after learning their plan, she went to the goddess herself. The goddess told her Fafnir's real body and her power are sealed inside the ring. Fafnir has become so weak that he now needs Juvel's body. So Juvel decides to break the seal, free Fafnir's true form, and finish this by using the goddess's power inside the ring. Legis is horrified when he hears that and strongly objects. Juvel tries to calm him, telling him how much she loves him and everyone else she cares about. She's determined to protect them and stop the empire from falling. So she makes her choice and breaks the ring's seal. The ring shatters and Fafnir bursts out. His true form is a dragon. After taking in all of the goddess's power, Juvel collapses, while Beatrice shields them with a barrier. When Juvel wakes up, Max tells her to adjust to her new mana while he and Legis deal with Fafnir. Legis raises his sword aura, knowing their enemy is no longer human. Max summons his own sword aura and says he's used to fighting non-human foes after training under a non-human master. Together, they launch their attacks on Fafnir's true form. Beatrice supports them too, casting a strong shield. Seeing Beatrice turn on him, Fafnir strikes back and attacks her. Juvel jumps in to protect Beatrice, but the goddess's power inside her is already wearing her down. The Floyan knights rush in, using a massive chain to hold Fafnir down. But Fafnir is even stronger than expected, and he snaps the chains with ease, throwing the knights aside. That gives Darius a chance to escape. When he sees Juvel, he flies into a rage, blames her for everything, and rushes in to stab her from behind. At the last second, Legis steps in and cuts off Darius's head. He immediately turns to Juvel and asks if she's okay. Juvel, though, is just as worried about Legis. Then Fafnir takes that opening and stabs Legis from behind right in front of her. Panicking, Juvel cries out to him, but he doesn't respond. As Legis's eyes slowly close, Juvel sobs, terrified she's losing her father. She desperately tries to wake him, while Max and Beatrice struggle to hold Fafnir back. Juvel then uses her magic to heal Legis. Seeing this, Beatrice warns that healing magic uses the caster's life force too, and begs her not to push herself too far. But Juvel refuses to stop. She'll sacrifice anything to save Legis. Geraldine steps in to shield Juvel and pulls her away from danger. Then Max comes to Legis and, with deep grief on his face, tells Juvel that Legis is dead. Juvel is shattered and can't accept what she's hearing. Without thinking, she grabs Legis's sword and swears she'll kill Fafnir. With pure resolve, she charges at him. Fafnir mocks her for using a sword she was never trained to wield. At the same time, Max attacks from another side. As Max drives his sword into Fafnir, he tells Juvel to pour her mana into the blade, break the barrier, and strike the heart. With everything she has, Juvel sends her mana into the sword. Then Legis suddenly appears behind her, his hand over hers on the sword. He tells her to focus on the tip of the blade and says he believes in her. Juvel bursts into tears of joy when she sees her father is alive. Together, they concentrate on breaking through Fafnir's barrier with their power. The moment it shatters, Max unleashes a fierce attack on Fafnir. Legis then tells Juvel to rest, saying he'll handle the rest. Juvel asks again if he's really all right. Patting her head, Legis reassures her that a small wound can't bring him down. He's still the Empire's strongest. Back at Max's side, Legis prepares to finish Fafnir for good. The two of them attack without stopping, driving Fafnir close to death. As his true form starts to fall apart, he desperately looks for another body to hide in. Then Goddess Circe appears before Juvel and says this is her only chance to seal Fafnir while he's still in spirit form. With Cersei gone, Juvel's pendant starts glowing with mana. In his final moment, Fafnir tries to possess Juvel, but the pendant bursts with a blinding light. In her dream, Emilia wakes Juvel and urges her to return, promising she'll take over from here. Juvel wakes up to worried voices. Beatrice, Legis, Geraldine, and Max are all there. Legis and Max pull her into a hug, deeply relieved to see her safe. Juvel is just as glad that everything is finally over. Fafnir is sealed inside the necklace Juvel got from her mother. The dragon that once threatened the Empire is now locked away in the Floyan Estate's underground vault. The Emperor is put on trial for trying to use Fafnir to destroy the Empire, and he's quickly executed. Then Max takes the throne to the cheers of the people. With the evil haunting their family gone, they can finally hope for a happy future. Juvel is dressed and ready for the big day. Freya gives her a quick rundown of what will happen, and Juvel smiles, saying she'll do her best not to mess anything up. Then Legis appears, offers his hand, and asks if she's ready. As they walk down the hall, Legis notices her cold hands and asks if she's nervous. Juvel teases that his hands are just too warm, then makes him promise not to cry later. Out of nowhere, Legis says it's still not too late to back out, even if she stays single forever. Juvel reminds him the wedding already started, but he argues there's still time before the vows. When they enter the hall, Max is waiting in his formal wear. Legis, though, clearly doesn't want to let go of Juvel's hand. After a short pause, he finally does, but the glare he sends Max says enough. Max and Juvel walk down the aisle together, bringing the guests to tears. The ceremony begins by honoring the heroes of the founding celebration. Beatrice, the great magician, becomes head of the magic tower and helps train young mages. Frisia, Max's trusted aide, is named captain of the Empress Guard, finally taking the role meant for her. Her joke about being free from the world's worst boss makes the whole hall laugh. The 5 key members of the Floyan Knights are praised for helping stop Fafnir, and are named personal knights of the imperial family. Everyone who served their part is acknowledged and rewarded. At last, the priest gives the goddess's blessing to Max and Juvel, placing Ashat's future in their hands. When the priest declares them husband and wife, Max gently kisses Juvel. Emotion sweeps through the crowd as everyone watches this long-awaited moment come true. Max and Juvel then vow to protect and lead the people of Ashat, officially becoming emperor and empress. They step outside to greet the people, where Legis is already waiting, pledging his loyalty to the new rulers. Max and Juvel greet the cheering crowds across the empire. In a playful moment, Max brings up Juvel's old promise that she would never marry the crown prince. It feels like forever ago. Juvel laughs and says she used to think the crown prince was some villain in a strange helmet. Max admits he didn't want to marry either, since he saw it as a loveless political deal. Juvel then says that as a child, she actually dreamed of marrying a prince. Max asks why. Juvel thinks back to her childhood storybooks. One day, she asked her parents what happened to the princess after the evil monster was defeated. Legis told her the princess probably married the prince on the white horse she admired. Emilia added that she then lived happily ever after, and that warm note brings the story to a close. Beatrice looks a little shy, but happy with Victor beside her. Legis, who worried about Juvel for so long, can finally rest easy seeing her happy. The others have found their own happiness too. All of it makes Juvel feel like the happiest person in the world, living a joyful life with her new family, her beloved husband, and their children. And that, my loves, is the complete story of Father I Don't Want to Get Married. Every single chapter available, done, finished. You are welcome, because yes, I brought you the whole thing. No cliffhangers, no part 2, maybe someday if the algorithm allows. No leaving you stranded wondering if they actually ended up together. The full journey, start to finish, right here. And can I just say, personally, this story wrecked me a little bit. Like, she came back from the dead specifically to avoid him. Girl had a whole plan, a strategy. She was focused, and then Max just existed in her vicinity, repeatedly, until her heart decided to completely betray her, and I was here for every second of it. The slow burn, immaculate. The moment she stopped running from her feelings, I screamed. And the wedding at the end with him bringing up her old I'll never marry the crown prince vow? Sir, you are insufferable and I love you. Juvel really said I wanted a fairy tale prince on a white horse and ended up with a terrifying emperor in a scary helmet who turned out to be the love of her life. That's called character development. That's called romance. That's called cinema. Anyway, if you enjoyed this complete story, I need you to smash that like button right now. Not for me, for the algorithm, for future complete stories, for Juvel and Max. They deserve it. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss whatever chaotic manhwa I drag you into next. And drop a comment telling me what story you want to see. I read them, I see you, and your suggestions genuinely influence what comes next. Kisses, and see you next time.